Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled Parent Stories. Today we have a very special episode for you, a compilation of some of the greatest entitled parent stories we read over the past year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a few hours of the most entitled parents you've ever heard of. And by the way, Karen assured me that if this video gets 1,000 likes, she won't try to speak to anyone's manager for an entire week. So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. And become an official member of the Re-Army today, and I'll give you a shout out in an upcoming video. r/Entitled Parents. Karen demands her meal for free, but gets instant karma instead. This story is about my mother. Yes, she is a mega Karen, and unfortunately, I've had to put up with her most of my life. This happened when I was a teenager, around 15. We went out for dinner at a small local restaurant that did all-you-can-eat buffets. I should mention that my mother has long, thick, and curly hair, and she never ties it up. Important for later. We got our dinner and sat down to eat, and all was going well. I was surprised at how well my mom was doing. By this point, she should have found something to complain about by now. And then it happened. She looked down at her plate and said, "OMG, look at this. There's a hair in my food." Me, knowing exactly what she was doing. "Mom, that's your hair." Mom, "No, that's not my hair." The way she was talking was obviously dramatized for effect, and she was beginning to get louder and drawing attention from other diners. She continued to cause a scene and get more irritating, drawing more attention to herself and inadvertently me. I wanted to sink into my chair from embarrassment. Not long after she started her fake tantrum, the waitress came over to see what the problem was. Waitress, "How's it going over here? What seems to be the problem?" Mom, "There's a hair in my food." Waitress, okay. Mom, getting furious at the lack of care from the waitress. "Well then, what are you going to do about it? We deserve to have our meals for free. This is horrible customer service." Waitress, with a smirk across her face. "I'm sorry you're not satisfied with our food. Would you like to speak to the chef?" Mom, looking smug that she thought she won. "Yes, I would." I was confused at this point, not understanding why the waitress didn't seem to care, even though I knew my mom was lying. But it soon became clear why. A few minutes later, a man came out from the back of the store and walked right up to our table, and my mom's face went ghost white and her jaw dropped. The chef was bald. Not balding, but so bald that you could see your reflection on his shiny scalp. Chef, "Hi there, how are things this evening? What seems to be the problem?" Mom, "Well, there's a hair in my food." Chef, smiling, "I'm sorry to hear that, ma'am, but unless I've miraculously grown a full head of hair on my walk over to your table, you can see I am very much bald. And as I am the only chef working tonight, that is clearly not my hair." Mom is speechless. Chef, "Is that all for now? I need to get back to work." Without waiting for an answer, he turned and walked back to the kitchen, but not before I mouthed sorry to him as he left. I knew better than to say anything to my mom after this. Rubbing her failure in her face was a bad idea, but I had a smile on my face for the rest of the night. Have any of you ever found a hair in your food? And if so, where was it at and what did you do about it? Please let us know. I would demand a refund. Revenge on evil landlord. When I was in university, I had heard stories about horrible landlords of student housing, but hadn't experienced it myself. Until third year, when it felt like we got 3 years worth of crappy landlords all in one go. It began when I heard noises in the wall behind my bed at night. I brushed it off for a while until I realized that it was an animal in the wall. I told the landlords the next day, and they immediately played dumb, acting as if I was stupid in front of my housemates for suggesting that something could fit inside of a wall. That was the first alarm bell. Why immediately tried to embarrass me into dropping it. After explaining that I know what a cavity wall is, she asked if we had seen anything in the kitchen. Oddly specific, we didn't think about it until later. From then on, her husband dealt with us. We weren't aware that he was our landlord too. A little time passes, still nothing done about the noise in my wall. Not that it was a surprise. I had worked out by then that it was probably something like a mouse and that it could run through the terrace of houses. As long as it didn't chew its way through my wall or die in there, I put the whole thing on the back burner. Until we were all sat in the living room and heard a thud in the kitchen, then squeaking. There was a giant rat in our kitchen. The rat disappeared into a hole in the completely crumbling kitchen wall, and the landlord claimed that we made it up and that they had never had a rodent problem. I contacted the previous tenants through Facebooking names I found on letters for them that had been posted to us by mistake. The property had had a rat problem for the last 3 years before we moved in, at least. I set a rat trap and caught one, took photos, and sent them to the landlord to tell him to sort the problem out. He told us that because there was a line in our contract about the landlord not paying for pest control, the contract specified wasp nests, etc. We didn't even think about rats when we signed it, that we'd have to pay the hundreds of pounds to fix it. He had knowingly written that into our contract so he wouldn't have to pay out, instead of fixing the kitchen wall and the exterior wall where the rats were getting in. To cut the rest of the setting the scene part of the story short, we called the council, who sent a pest control team. While on their visit, one of the men took my housemate to one side and told her that our landlord is evil and he is known for getting nasty. They told him that it wasn't our fault that there were rats, it was his, and he screamed in my face until he was bright red about how I was a terrible person and was trying to take him down for no reason. One of my housemates had to leave because she was scared. I wasn't. We were in a room full of men who were backing us up, making himself look worse for screaming in my face like that. I'm female and was 22 at the time, about half his size. He tried to sue us for slander. It isn't slander if it's true, so swing and a miss. Now for the revenge. It was written into our contract that we had to be notified 24 hours in advance if anyone needed access to the house, which included house viewings. I began my mission: stop any students from getting stuck in this place. The house was being shown by agents, so it made it fairly easy. I left the rat traps in prominent places, casually explaining why we needed them if asked, and if I felt I was being too subtle, making a fake show of, "Oh gosh, please ignore the rat traps. The landlord said he'd fix the kitchen wall where they get in, but hasn't gotten around to it, so we have to catch them." I was honest about the mold problem in the bathroom. When I found out they were planning on increasing the rent by £100 a month, I made a point of saying something like, "Well, it's just about worth the rent I was paying." I made sure to say his name so they wouldn't get away with using his wife's name as a front while his reputation for aggression stays hidden. The agents never said anything to me directly, and because we had to be notified, I could always make sure I was home when there was a viewing. My housemates fully supported my revenge, but I was the woman of action in the house. When I'm sure I'm in the right, I will do what's necessary to make things right. That was until they tried to turn up unannounced one day, not even knocking, just unlocked our front door and walked in. Luckily, I was in the house and kicked them out for not informing us and told them they were in breach of our contract. If the landlord could use it to beat us with, two can play at that game. No new tenants had signed for the house by the time we were free of that place. It's been 2 years now though, so I have no idea what happened to the rat house. Speaking of rats, have you ever seen a rat or a mouse in your house? And if so, what did you do about it? Please let us know. I would call the previous owners and demand they come fix it. You owe me $1,200. When I was 17, I had purchased 10 ounces of silver from my high school art teacher. I believe I paid just under $20 for it. I had shown this to my mom when I came home from school. However, due to the way my father was treating me, I left home that night. I took my clothes, a few keepsakes, some books, and also the silver. I left quite a few belongings behind in a closet in my room, belongings that my parents refused to let me retrieve in later years. I got most of it back when they died, but things like the first Barbie in its original box and a Chatty Cathy doll were gone. But I digress. This was back in 1967. By 1980, I had been married 5 years. My sister had come by to visit, and she told me that she had just been to see our mom and dad. She also told me that they were frantically tearing through the closet in my old bedroom and wouldn't tell her why. I just shrugged at this because our parents were odd to say the least. About 10 minutes after she told me this, my mom called me. Mom didn't even say hi when I answered the phone. She just frantically asked me where I had put that silver I had purchased. It took me a while to remember just what silver she was talking about. When I finally remembered, I told her that I had made all of that into jewelry over a decade before. This totally upset her. She screamed at me to stop lying. She said that they had been looking for that silver all day. I was still puzzled, so I asked her why. That is when she told me that the silver price was nearly $50 an ounce at that moment, and she knew that I had several ounces of it and I needed to tell her where it was right now. I again told her that it was all gone. I had made rings and pendants with it, had given them away to my friends, and even sold some. She then freaked out. All 25 ounces of it? It was 10 ounces, and that was 13 years ago, I said. She really came unglued. She said that her and my dad were counting on that $1,200 because my youngest brother needed it for his kids, that I was being selfish. Then she decided that I owed her $1,200 because I didn't leave the silver at her house as I should have done. I reminded her that it wasn't 25 ounces, it was only 10, that I had purchased it with my own money, so it had been my property, and I owed her, my dad, and my brat youngest brother nothing at all. This angered her further. She told me that I will be hearing from their lawyer, and then she slammed the phone down. She would have hated cell phones because you can't slam them. I never did hear from her lawyer, at least not that time. In fact, I never heard another word about that stupid silver. The price went back down just a day or so later. It had been a weird fluke that had made it soar in price like that anyway. I mean, you can't just go get instant market value for metals like that, can you? I wouldn't think a precious metals broker would want to risk their money on a fluke. I'm sure that her dread lawyer told them this as well as telling her she had no case, if she even talked to him at all. Which do you like more, silver or gold? Please let us know. I prefer platinum. Entitled Aunt tries to get into the house, gets denied. My grandmother broke her leg, and for 5 years, my mother cared for her every day, despite my grandmother treating her like crap. Mom has 4 other siblings. One, Entitled Aunt, lives 10 minutes from grandmother and refused to help because it was just too far to drive, etc. Entitled Aunt was constantly taking money from grandmother, and when Mom would call her on her crap, she'd get mad and leave. Well, Aunt decided to move out of state and didn't tell anyone she was going, which broke Grandma's heart because Entitled Aunt was her favorite. So Entitled Aunt makes no effort to call, check up, anything on grandmother, and when Grandma gets put in hospice, actually says, "My granddaughter is getting married for the 3rd time, so I'll see Mom then." Said granddaughter wasn't getting married for a month. Anyway, Grandma holds on. Aunt keeps calling other aunt and uncle, never Mom, and asking for updates, and when they don't have any, she tells other aunt, "Okay, you need to tell me when she's close because we need to go through the house and really search it because I know there's money in that house." This gets relayed to my mother through non-entitled aunt. So when Grandma actually died, we weren't expecting her to show up. Guess what? She was on her way ASAP. So Aunt is hauling butt to the house because we all know Entitled Aunt is on her way. Entitled Aunt gets there with Entitled Cousin, and I very politely greet them and inform them that Entitled Aunt cannot come into the house. This starts a massive fight because Cousin is the type to A, blow things out of proportion, and B, literally push her way into the house like what we say means nothing. I shut her down right there, preparing to be attacked. Mom eventually comes out, and it continues the fight where Aunt is screaming, "Why can't I come in?" Mom yells back, "Because you didn't give a crap about Mom when she was alive, so you sure as heck don't get to come around now that she's gone." Aunt calls me scum, tells Mom she raised scum, and Cousin gets back into the car threatening me by saying that when other Aunt arrives, she will let them in. Newsflash, she didn't. They called Uncle. He told them he didn't give a hoot and hung up on them. So now Cousin is threatening to call a lawyer and have us sued for what she claims is her mother's rightful inheritance, which she was given but threw back at me like a little brat. Didn't hurt much. It was only $5. Have you ever had any entitled aunts or uncles? And if so, what do you do about it? She did nothing wrong. Give her her inheritance. Entitled Mom complains about our neighborhood the day she moves in. This story is still going on. She is still complaining about our peaceful neighborhood. Here's the background tea. My neighborhood is 2 minutes away from one of the best, but not well-known, national parks, That park being the Wikiva River. Seriously though, there's a mini water park at the center of the river. It's amazing. Because we live so close to a national park, we tend to get deer, black bears, alligators, frogs, snakes, etc. I've lived in that neighborhood for around 5 years. It's quiet and small, and all of the dogs are calm boyos. Now you know the background tea, here is the real tea. Cast. We've got my dad, who manages most of the neighborhood. We've got entitled mom. We've got dad's friend, who also manages the neighborhood. I don't get involved in this story, by the way, but I will answer questions, I guess. Before we start, Dad has a chat with the realtor of the house, and the realtor says that she is quite entitled. Uh-oh. Entitled mom moves in the last open plot of the neighborhood, which is right next to my house. Dad emails entitled mom the welcome letter, which includes the stuff that would be appearing, such as the wildlife, and that it is frog mating season, so frogs will croak their heads off for babes. Entitled mom, of course, moved into the house next to the second largest lake in our neighborhood. Plus, she didn't read the letter, which means she has no clue that alligators like to vibe near the lake. After she moves in with her toddler and yappy dogs, complaint number 1 rolls in. Entitled mom. The frogs are too loud and I can't sleep. Make them stop. Dad basically does a mental facepalm, realizing she has not read the welcome letter at all. Dad soon explains to her that it is currently mating season for the frogs, and that frogs will start appearing everywhere around the neighborhood as they mate. A couple of days later, an alligator decides to chill near the lake, closest to her house. It is a small alligator, probably 3 feet long. The alligator seems like the skittish type and most likely will not do any harm. Because of this, complaint 2 rolls in. There is an alligator near my house. It's going to eat us. Take it away. Of course, the alligator is quite small and will do no harm unless the kid or dogs do something harmful to it, such as throwing a rock at it. Dad talks to his friend about the situation and decides that the alligator will not be removed unless it poses an actual threat. Entitled mom did not like this, by the way. Complaint number 3 rolls in, which is an utter lie. OMG, the alligator approached me. It needs to be removed, now! Dad becomes quite annoyed and talks to his friend about how she made a complaint about the calm alligator. Entitled mom clearly lied to Dad and his friend to get them to remove the alligator when the alligator is legit, just vibing peacefully. Of course, the dilemma is still taking place, so I might repost an updated version of this. Wait until she sees a hawk, deer, or a bear. Do you like nature and wildlife, or do you try to stay as far away from it as possible? Please let us know. She has every right to have them take that alligator away. Karen needs her very own checkout lane. This happened several years ago. I was shopping at Garden Ridge, which sold household items, decor items, gifts, and craft supplies. It was a huge store with 2 entrances and 2 sets of checkout lanes, 1 set at each entrance. I was casually shopping when a round woman in her 50s or 60s got right in front of my cart. She glared at me, and I tried to go around her, but stopped me again, saying, "You gonna help me or not?" I said, "What?" "I need a register open so I can check out." I looked at her, astounded. I said, "I don't work here, but there are registers open at the other entrance." To which she replied, "I don't want to walk to those registers. Now open one and check me out." I looked her in the eye and said sternly, "I don't work here." She threw her hands up in the air and started to walk away. As she was walking away, she turned and yelled at me, "This isn't over." I ignored her. I grabbed the last couple of items I needed and headed to the register/checkout. I noticed the line was not moving and I could hear that awful woman's voice. She was arguing with the cashier. The cashier called a manager. Other people waiting in line were getting impatient and it was showing. The manager arrived and instructed the cashier to open another register so that the rest of us, the sane people, could check out. "How come you open a register for them, but not for me?" the awful woman yelled at the manager. He replied, "Ma'am, you're at an open register now. What can I help you with?" "I wanted a register open at the other door, and one of your workers refused to do it. She kept babbling nonsense." I raised my hand and got the manager's attention. The awful woman looked over at me at the same time the manager did. "It was her. She wouldn't open a register for me. Then she lied and said she didn't work here," shouted the awful woman. "Ma'am, she doesn't work here," the manager said. "Are you going to help me or not?" she yelled. "I'm trying to help you, ma'am. but you haven't asked for something that I can help you with. If you want to check out, then I'll check you out." The awful woman huffed and puffed and started angrily putting her items on the counter. I was nearly done paying for my items at the other checkout lane when she was done paying for hers. The manager handed her the receipt and told her to have a nice day. As the awful woman was walking towards the door, she paused and shouted, "I guess customer service is dead here." The manager shouted back, "Ma'am, you can call corporate and get it out of your system. I'm not going to allow you to disrespect me or my staff." "Oh, I'm definitely calling corporate, and I'm telling them everything that happened here today," she yelled. I was walking past her and said to her, "I'm sure that will be rich. Tell them you need to have your own personal checkout lane while you're at it." She looked at me, red-faced and shaking, and yelled, "I plan on it," then took off following the sidewalk around the building. As I walked to my car, I was still in shock that someone can be so awful. What would you do if you saw someone acting like this? Would you say anything to them or just try to ignore them? Please let us know. "She did nothing wrong. She just wanted help checking out." Entitled kid throws away a free sandwich. I live in the Netherlands, so that is why my English is kinda bad. Sorry. Close to a big city. I usually go there every other Sunday with some sandwiches for homeless people and sometimes for the kids playing outside. Almost all homeless people know me and when and where I am at Sunday. This story happened last weekend. I was giving out sandwiches to this guy when a kid approaches me. Entitled kid, probably 15 or 16. "Hello, I heard you were giving out free sandwiches, are you not?" Me, "Yes, for homeless people and for kids." Entitled kid, "Can I have one?" Me, "No, these are for homeless people and little kids." Entitled kid, "Yes, but I am a kid." Me, "No, you're not. You're a young adult." I don't know if this is a thing, but in the Netherlands it is. This is what we call people from 16 to 18 years old. Entitled kid, "But I am 12. Me, now irritated, only this time." Entitled kid, "Yay." 3 minutes later, entitled kid comes back to me. Me, "You're not getting another one." Entitled kid, "I want to bring this one back. I don't like cheese." Me, having no patience or respect for him anymore. "I gave you a free sandwich, and you're coming back to complain about it?" "Yes, 'cause I don't like cheese." Me, "And what did you do with the sandwich?" "I threw it away." "You did what?" "I threw it away." I shouted at him to get out of my sight, and since last week, I don't give sandwiches to anyone over 11 or people that are not homeless. Okay, so you might say, "OP, how dare you scream at a kid in public?" It's a simple answer. There are people out there who really need the food, and then there's a kid that complains about not liking cheese. And speaking of cheese, what's your favorite flavor cheese of all time? Please let us know. All I eat is brie. I have never been so degraded in my life. Hello, Mr. Reddit and the Re-Army. I love your videos. Your voices are fantastic. If you use this in a video, you have full permission. English is my first language, and I just suck at typing. And sorry about any incorrect formatting. I will try to keep this as clean as I can. Sorry if this is super long. So a bit of background. I have been drawing since I was in 8th grade, and of course, I have improved much since then, as I am now 21, and I take some great pride in my work. Well, I first started with humans, and then once I got into My Little Pony in 9th grade, I started drawing it in 10th grade. Well, a few years down the line, I find this social app called Amino. It's an amazing app, by the way. I am always on it. Well, I joined one of the biggest communities on the app, which was an MLP community. I loved this community and still do. Recently reached 3,000 plus followers on it. Yay! Well, at one point, I tried to join a group in the community. I applied to be a teacher in the group to teach those that wanted to learn to draw or improve their art. I will admit, when I got the spot, I lost it due to my stupidity. I started being difficult and claiming that I was met with hostility, and I did say I was going to leave, but only twice. I still think I kinda was, but that doesn't matter. Anyways, I ended up leaving the group because I didn't really want to stay in a group where I was going to be mocked and shunned. Well, just after I left, I lurked a bit without joining back to see someone had messaged in the group about me being an attention seeker. I was mad because they made me out to be a bad guy when I wasn't trying to be. Well, they ended up PMing me a bit later, and from the start, this guy acted like an entitled jerk. The following conversation took place. Just a heads up though, some of the messages might seem like they're out of order, but they are in order of replies, so there might be messages replying to a message from before. The lovely cast. We've got HG, me, and we've got Entitled Jerk. Entitled Jerk messaged me first.
Can I tell you something about what art really is?
Sure. And by the way, you were wrong about me. I wasn't seeking attention, and I wasn't trying to brag. I was just annoyed that I was met with animosity. I'll let you tell me if I can tell you what art is to me. He was quiet for a few, so I asked, you there?
Yes, but telling you'll leave several times is kind of attention-seeking.
I said it twice, only twice.
That's still much. You need to get yourself together and actually listen to their criticism.
What the heck, jerk? I wasn't going to keep myself in a group where I am not welcome. I don't need that kind of stress.
You're far inexperienced at art.
Gee, thanks for the vote of confidence.
You need to listen and actually look for flaws in your art. You'll improve faster. I've only been drawing for 7 months, and I learned all that simply by taking criticism.
How many times do I have to tell people that I have a lot to learn? I am taking an art class. I am in it right now, in fact. I already doubt my skills as is. I don't want more of a reason to. I am self-taught. There are a lot of basics I didn't learn. I have been drawing for 5 to 6 years. I started in 8th grade. This happened back when I was taking a college drawing class.
Many of us are self-taught, but we tried to find flaws and look for every place where improvement was needed. You have misunderstood how art is supposed to be, how you're supposed to get better.
You want to see how bad I was? I started with drawing humans.
I don't want to.
It was bad, I can tell you.
Okay.
Hair came from the middle of their foreheads, but now I draw way better than I did 5 to 6 years ago. Like even the ponies I draw now. I couldn't draw what I draw now about 3 years ago. I had only been drawing ponies for 3 years at this point.
I draw way better than from 7 months ago. There's a huge improvement. You've drawn ponies for 3 years, but you still haven't learned their anatomy properly?
And how have I not? I use bases all the time. I am a huge advocate for the use of bases as a teaching tool. I use them as a reference all the time, and they are a huge help. Entitled Jerk sends a screenshot of one of my drawings.
Base? I've never seen a base with those legs or bods.
I interpret bases. Art is up to how you see it.
The tail is wrong too.
I see it differently than you do. So you are going to say that what I draw is wrong? That is not very nice or good criticism. It's very degrading. Entitled Jerk proceeds to draw over my art without my permission and sends me a picture.
See any difference? I'm trying to knock some sense into you.
Very rudely.
You won't take it either way. It's like talking to a wall. So why bother being polite?
You are denigrating my style and how I draw. That is not very nice.
Oh my lord. You're using the "it's my art style" excuse?
Well, you're really going to get a wall when you speak rudely to me. I did nothing to you. You are being a jerk. Really. There is no right way to draw. You have no right to dictate how I draw and make my art.
Look at the red lines in my drawing. It shows how the drawings should have been. I never did. You're being rude by calling me a jerk. I'm telling you what art is. You're ignoring me when I am trying to knock some sense into you.
You were rude first.
I never called you a jerk.
So what? You insulted me by degrading my art.
The only way to get better grades is to listen to the teacher, you know?
I know I have a lot to learn, and you are like, This is how it is done. You are wrong. That is not very nice. Not if the teacher is rude and demoralizing.
You have a lot to learn and still think you qualify to be in the position teacher. It's for experienced people, constantly trying to get feedback and improving their art.
Well, I am nicer than you and more encouraging. I don't outright say, your art is bad. You don't know what you're doing, blah blah blah. That is not right.
Well, it's really nice to call someone a jerk, smiley face. I'm encouraging you to get yourself together and destroy that wall.
What wall? You entitled jerk? I am put together just fine, and you are not encouraging anything but spite. I am normally a very nice person, but like you are making it hard for me to be.
How so? You didn't get yourself together. You never listened to any constructive criticism. You thought you were perfect, and everyone else got issues.
Great grammar there, jerkwad.
Oh, pulling the mask off and showing the edgy teen now?
I am in no way edgy. Let me tell you something. I never thought that, ever. I am 20 years old, for your information. I was still 20 when this convo occurred.
An immature 20 years old.
You want to know something? I know that there are people better than me. There are people out there with skill I will never be able to come close to. But I have never thought in my life that I am better than anyone. Don't assume you know me, because you know nothing about me. I still don't think I am better than anyone, mostly because I don't think it is right to think that way. Everyone is equal to me.
I know you have a very thick head, just like a flat earth believer. You don't want to acknowledge your mistakes.
I acknowledge my mistakes just fine. If I never did, I would have never learned from them and wouldn't have the skill I have today. And don't compare me to those nut jobs. I am not thick-headed either.
Nut jobs?
I ended the convo after that, telling him to bug someone else with his messed up ideas of art. I then proceeded to block and report him because I wasn't going to deal with it anymore. I have never been so upset about someone degrading me in my life, and to this day, I'm still angry about it. Every time I read the blog I posted about it on my page on Amino, my anger returns. Even just typing this out, I was livid. Seriously, this guy just had a problem with me, and I didn't know why. But thankfully, I never heard from him again after I blocked him. Entitled mom tells her kids to take my longboard at the beach. So today, I had my first encounter with a level 99 entitled mother, and I wouldn't repeat. I live in a small coastal town near Alicante in Spain, and today the weather was perfect for a day at the beach. So I took my brand new longboard, a Sector 9 Mirage Meridian for those interested, and went to a small beach that is kinda hidden, so not many people know it. Also, it's one of those beaches that is part sand and part rock, so it's perfect for me because I can leave my longboard in the rocks and not worry about sand getting inside the bearings. I arrived and there were only like 3 other human beings in the beach and another person paddle surfing. So I go to the other side of the beach because I don't like having people around my stuff while I'm inside the water. So I get in, and maybe about 10 minutes later, the entitled mom, Karen, arrives with her 4 kids, around 5 to 10. There were 3 boys and 1 girl. Immediately, they go to the side of the beach that my backpack, towel, and board were on, but I don't think anything of it, because you won't think that a grown woman would try to steal from you. They set camp 8 meters or so away from where I left my stuff, and suddenly 2 of the boys notice my longboard, so they get close. I'm watching from the beach, and I get out of the water without a hurry because they don't seem like they're touching it. So I get out and greet the kids and show them my board, and both of them like it a lot, and they ask me if they can ride it. I tell them nicely that it is a difficult sport, and besides that, we are at the beach and it's not going to work either on the sand or the rocks. The kids were disappointed, but understood that the beach wasn't the best place to try riding the board, so they go back to their mom. 5 minutes pass, and suddenly Karen is approaching with a smug look on her face, but walking awkwardly around the rocks. Karen: "Excuse me, but my kids asked you politely if they could try your board. Why won't you let them?" Me: "I could give you many reasons, but mainly this isn't the terrain to use it." Karen: "Well, I don't care. Don't bring a toy to the beach if you are not okay with kids wanting to play with it. Me. First of all, this isn't a toy. This is a quite expensive longboard that I use both as a transport method and a sport. And secondly, I'm perfectly sure that I'm in my right to not let your kids touch my stuff. Karen. You are such a rude young person. I bet your parents are ashamed. Me. Whatever. Get lost. Karen storms back to her towel, yelling at me, and after a while, I decide that it's hot, so I should get inside the sea for a bit. However, this time I'm a lot more suspicious of Karen and the brats, so I don't go too far and I stay in the shore near my longboard. Karen starts packing her stuff and tells her kids that it's time to leave, but she calls the two older boys that wanted to see my longboard and whispers something in their ears. Now I get ultra suspicious and get ready to storm out of the sea and catch the kids if needed, but at the same time I play dumb and I look the other way while I discreetly keep an eye on my board. As soon as they think I'm distracted, the two kids start running towards my stuff. I start running myself because I know the crap Karen told them to pull off. They pick up my longboard, but it's too late for them to run away. I'm already out of the water and running at them full speed, so I grab my longboard and unceremoniously take it out of the hands of one of the boys. Karen, watching from the distance, rushed towards me while yelling. Karen. Assault! Assault! He stole my son's skateboard! Assault! There are now like 10 people in the beach and they're all looking at us. Karen. Give it back or I'm calling the police. You should know my husband is in Guardia Civil. It's like a Spanish military police of sorts. Me. Like I give a flying hoot. Call them. This is my longboard and I can prove it. Karen. It's not yours. It's a kid's toy that belongs to my kids. At this point, all of her kids are crying. Me. Ma'am, if you try to take this board from me, I'll sue you so hard, I'll be able to buy myself a full collection of them. She proceeded to try and grab my longboard by the grip tape side. Rookie mistake, because I have my hands on the trucks. So when she tried to grab it, I pulled the back, lightly scratching her palm. Karen. You scratched my hand. How dare you? At this point, I had lost my nerves, so in my scariest screaming voice, I tell her to back off. At this point, two police officers that were driving their motorcycles in the road by the beach noticed the fuss and approached us. As soon as Karen sees them, she starts with the usual Karen BS. Officers, thank God you're here. This boy assaulted us and stole my kid's toy. Officer 1. Is that true? Me. Of course not. It was her who tried to steal my longboard, and I can prove it's mine. I have at least 10 photos of it on my phone from various dates, and I even have the receipt on my email. Officer 2. Can you show me the receipt and the photos? Officer 2 accompanied me back to my backpack, and I picked up my phone and showed him each and every photo and video I had of me longboarding, the receipt, and even my longboarding gloves, which were inside my backpack. We go back to Officer 1, Karen, and the kids, where Karen is making up all sorts of lies about me. Officer 2 tells his partner that the longboard is without a doubt mine, but Karen doubles down on her story. Officer 2. Enough with this, ma'am, please. The board belongs to this boy, and there's no doubt about it. Go away before I fine you for disturbance of the order. Karen goes away shouting. The officers apologize to me for the troubles, but I thank them because they ended up taking my side. So, a pretty crazy day at the beach. I wonder how people can be so entitled. Speaking of longboards, have you ever tried longboarding? Or how about skateboarding or rollerblading or scooters? Please let me know what your favorite is. I'd love to hear from you. If it sounds good enough, I might come take it for my son. Do I have to wear a special dress for my wedding? Entitled Mom says yes. First, some historical context. My family calls itself a Catholic, but we have never been that abiding to the church canon or protocol since I can remember. My grandmother is a lady who was born in 1930 and had the good luck of having an awesome father who surrounded her with all kinds of books. So the critic thinking has been in my family for 4 generations now. This happened back in 2002. My older brother, 26 at the time, and his girlfriend, 24 at the time, had decided to get married because of legal commodities. They both were in the first stages of their respective jobs. My brother is an engineer and was working on making a name for himself in his field. My now sister-in-law is a dentist who had recently begun to work in the public health system, so her work hours were crazy. She was called if there was an emergency, even if outside of her shifts. As you can imagine, she didn't count with a lot of time to plan anything, and their common budget was not a wedding budget you would expect. They were adamant on paying for their own wedding, saying it was their decision and their responsibility to take. So they settled by a family meeting in my godfather's backyard. Simple food and family. No religious ceremony. Pretty simple, right? So in their own words, they could just stand there and be done with it. We've got E, my awesome but annoying older brother. We've got R, then girlfriend, now sister-in-law. We've got entitled Mom, R's Momzilla. We've got H, R's sister. We've got my middle brother, older than me, younger than E. We've got my awesome mom, and we've got me, a lousy teenager just watching all the drama. It all began the night they told us they were planning to marry. Everyone said the mandatory congratulations and asked about plans, parents planning budgets and all of that. My mom says she can help with the party even if it's not traditional, and girlfriend's parents can pay for the church and all the religious ceremony thing being involved. Here comes the our crap, our money from the bride and groom. My mom looks at my brother with pride. She always does, even if he's just kicking a rock. Entitled Mom then says if they need anything to feel free to ask her or her husband, and that, of course, her gift would be the dress. She has seen a couple in a brochure from this shop that is a dream. Girlfriend, do I have to wear a special dress? Entitled Mom looks at her as if she has just spewed her undeniable love towards Cthulhu. Of course you do. It's your wedding. My brother, I feel like we should clarify this. There's not going to be a religious ceremony or a big event. We're getting married because it's convenient for us. Me, happily eating spaghetti bolognese. They began the first blackmail fit. Entitled Mom began sobbing. How could they disrespect the church in that way? They would be living in sin. How could they do this to her? Girlfriend was the only daughter she was going to see getting married in her lifetime. Look at her sister. She was an old maid and would never give her that joy. Spoiler alert, the older sister, she was 27 at the time. And alright, even if they don't want a religious wedding, at the very least, she should buy a dress. How is she getting married in a potato sack? Yep, those were her words. At this point, me and my brothers share a look because the disaster was imminent. Middle brother, why don't we all compromise on something? We can all go dress shopping, find something appropriate, and at the same time look special. Me, even touring another store, or more than one. By this point, my grandmother was getting stressed, and I was dizzy because of the high pitch of the yelling, so I just wanted them out of my nose. Girlfriend was not precisely happy, but agreed, and to try to placate things even more, commissioned her mom with all the preparations for the reception, gave specifications. I hear her saying something small, like 15 times, and the card with the money. She claimed that with the little time her job left, this would be better. We all thought it was true. The day of the shopping, I was dragged with them along with my mom. I have never been fond of shopping trips. I find them boring, and my medical condition is not precisely ideal for them. But I complied. I saw girlfriend getting stuffed in God knows how many dresses. Entitled Mom was in heaven, saying one and the other were prettier than the last one. But at the end of the day, this was a civil wedding. So R chose the one that was not a wedding dress. It was white, but just above the knee, with long sleeves, the fabric was the sparkle of the entire thing. Not a single shine, rainstone, or something remotely wedding-esque. Cut to 3 weeks before the wedding. I was in the patio arranging things to get my dog home. She has just been born. When I see R rushing in with a giant box in tow. She's a little shorter than me, and I'm a 1.56 meter giant. She looked pretty upset, and my brother wasn't home, so I rushed behind her to see if she was okay. When I asked her what happened, she sputtered, threw a box away as if it burned, and began walking into our living room. I tried to sit her down, talk to her until she was a little bit more collected, and offer juice. And while I went to fetch it, I called my brother and shouted for my mom for reinforcements. After things calmed a little bit, my mom consoling her, for we didn't even know why, my brother finally arrived. R shows the box. It's a giant dress, with all the looks of a meringue cupcake, ruffles, rainstones, a heart-shaped cleavage, a veil, and I think even gloves. I'm not that sure. And R began to cry. The dress was the least of the problems. It turned out Entitled Mom had booked a church, church's decorations, a priest, flowers, candles, and for the reception, a 5-course banquet, a giant designer's cake, decorators because they have to make my godfather's backyard look presentable, and chosen the invitations. All of this paying with the card they gave her, which was perhaps around 10% or something of the like of the total price for all the nonsense. Obviously, they got everything returned. Have a couple of problems with some people who do not accept cancellations, but the bank took care of it. The story has a happy ending though. They had to do something before entitled mom got wind of the things, so in that very moment, they jumped in my brother's car, went to the courthouse and got married. Stopped on the way back to my house to buy a ton of pizza, frappuccinos for everyone, and fruit tarts from our favorite bakery when we were kids. Texted everyone that they had just gotten married and that everyone was welcome to celebrate with them at home. When ours dad and sister arrived, they said entitled mom was deeply hurt and offended and that she was not putting a foot in that ridiculous party, not after the disregard of all her efforts and job. It was better for everybody. Today, they're still married. They have a teenage kid who is both joy and work, but who we all love deeply. Entitled mom is still there, sometimes making a fuss, but my brother has gotten very good at handling her. Whenever you get married, are you going to want a big wedding or a small wedding? And if you're already married, which kind did you have? Please let us know. When Kevin and I got married, we had a huge wedding. It was over $80,000. But that's what credit cards are for. Our policy says we can give all products away for free to the fourth waiting in line. So I did. Context. I work at a local supermarket as a low-wage cashier, and this happened at the beginning of this year. Our supermarket chain decided that in 2020, there should be less people on the work floor because they wanted to reduce wage costs. Now, that wouldn't be such a bad idea if they didn't apply it to busy days, and I work on the busy days. You should also know that at my supermarket, we have a rule that the fourth person waiting in line gets all their stuff in the basket completely for free, unless all regular checkouts are occupied. In our supermarket, there are 3 regular checkouts, but usually they are not all occupied. It was a busy Saturday, and I was the only one behind a checkout. My boss is currently working and also another fellow employee. It's around 10 a.m., and usually it gets really busy around 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. There are 3 customers at my checkout, and I start to get a bit nervous and ask through my earpiece that somebody needs to open up another checkout. My boss, she is a nice boss by the way, I don't have any grudge against her, tells me that everything is fine. Alrighty then, everything is fine. It gets even busier, and there are now 5 or 6 people at my checkout. Boss is dealing with self-scanner customers, and the other employee is at the other checkout. I tell my boss that someone really needs to open up a new checkout or I'm going to have to start handing out free goods to everyone. She tells me not to, and to just send people to an empty checkout. This works well, because most people in my city are not even aware of the fourth in line rule, so it is a good way to prevent giving away free products. Alright then, I send customer number 4 through now 7 to an empty checkout. New customers are now taking in the places of the people who I just sent away, and they start looking mad at me. Understandable. After a couple minutes, still nobody has opened the other checkout because they were also handling a lot of people. I decide to just follow the policy and give people what they are entitled to. Sir, did you know that you were fourth in line? Fourth in line gets everything for free. So here you go. I scan the next products. Miss, everything here is free. Have a wonderful day. Next person comes. I scan the products. Everything is free. Have a nice day. I still had to scan the products, but it actually got rid of the queue really fast because I'm quite good at scanning things fast. It's just that a lot of people in this city are elderly who are really slow at paying and packing up. Either they can't see the numbers well or they don't remember the number combination for their card. I also gave the people who I sent away and came back everything for free. After the whole thing, my boss asked me why I was giving everyone everything for free, and I simply stated that I'm following the rules. But I told you to send them to an empty checkout. Yes, and then they came back to me because nobody was going to open a checkout. Then she walked away mad, probably because they just lost a bunch of money. Now they have decided that more people should be working on busy days, and I'm glad. I also hope those customers enjoyed their free products. What would you have done if you were in this situation? Would you have given the products away for free or just kept ringing them up? I'd love to hear from you. It's about time, cashier, start giving us what we deserve. I teach my lazy dad a lesson. Cast. We've got me, my dad, and my sister. Story. I'm 17 and I do my share of chores around the house, have been doing for years. They involve taking out the trash, mopping the whole house, etc. One evening, I was mopping the dining room and the living room area, common room, when it started raining lightly. My dad was outside and called me to take down the clothes from the clothesline outside that were left to dry. Since I was busy, I called my sister to do it. Note that the clothes were not mine at all. They belonged to my mom, my sister, and my dad. I had left my mom's and sister's clothes to dry. Not my usual chore, just helping. My sister is mostly a lovable person and goes out to do it. Then my dad yells at her and tells her that it's raining. It's barely raining, just a few drops here and there. So I go outside and he's sitting there fidgeting on his iPad. I'm kind of upset and this conversation follows. Me. Could you please do it this once? I'm actually mopping the floor. Dad. No. Me. Why not? You're simply sitting here and I'm doing something else. Dad. 'Cause I don't want to. Yes, he said that. You left them out to dry, so it's your responsibility. Me. Those are not even my clothes. Dad. So? None of my business. I quit trying and went to do it. That's when I noticed his clothes were also there. Cue the malicious compliance. He said it was my responsibility because I left the clothes out to dry, but I didn't leave his clothes out. So I took down my sister's and mom's clothes and left his clothes remaining. He was so immersed in his iPad he didn't notice. Conclusion. All of his pants were there and they got wet. It's rainy season where I live, so good luck with drying those pants. Also, I don't regret it. My mom said what I did was very wrong. Am I the jerk? Edit. This happened today. I'm not able to see some comments, but by now I'm pretty convinced that I was being a jerk. What do I do now? He's giving me the silent treatment. Update. I tried apologizing after a lot of you told me to, and he rejected it. Do you think it was wrong what he did? And why or why not? We'd love to hear from you in the comments below. I'd teach them a lesson they wouldn't soon forget. I am legit terrified for my life after this. So this doesn't seem like much, but as someone with really bad anxiety, this made me shake and have a breakdown at work. So this man comes up to my register and he seems really mad for some reason. I try to be cheerful to, make his day a little brighter, and he is just not into it. I accept that and scan his item. It's a very expensive item. He all of a sudden gets super upset. We've got the customer and we've got me. Customer. What is this? Me. The customer. The price was $163. Yelling at this point. Me. I'm so sorry, sir, but did you maybe read the wrong tag? No. Oh, well, I can go back there with you and see. I'll change it if you're right. Customer grunts. No, forget it. Just ring me out. Me, a little shaky at this point, hands noticeably vibrating. All right, that'll be $200.85. Customer grabs card reader pen and just starts stabbing the screen. Sir, you have to be gentle. It won't work if you do that. Whatever. Finally hits the button right and rips the receipt out of my hand. Me. Having that customer storms off to the back of the store where the item was. Me. Okay. A couple of moments later, customer shoves his phone in my face, which has a picture of the price. See? I told you. Me. Oh, okay, sir. Please don't yell at me. Returns the product and re-rings it. I can't take you incompetent people. Me. Notices he isn't wearing a mask, which I didn't notice before because I was too anxious. Sir, you have to wear a mask in the store. In fact, it's illegal. Did I ask you for your opinion? He spits at me and onto the counter. Me, literally terrified and shaking. Customer. Only medical nurses need to wear masks. I'm not sick. Rips the new receipt out of my hand again and just storms out of the store. Me, frozen, trying to process, reaches down for the cleaner and cleans the countertop. Silent. After that, my boss sent me to lunch and I broke down crying in front of my coworker who was on break. I just wish I could remember his name so I could tell my manager. And sorry this doesn't have a happy ending, but to be honest, most retail experiences don't have sharp and witty comebacks the moment a horrible customer walks in. Also, for context, I work in a retail store that is mostly for older/retired people, RV stuff, so I get a lot of old and cranky customers. But this one was just truly a spectacle. I know I should have called the police or something, but I was just too frozen to do anything, and no other customers/coworkers were around. If I see him again though, I'm going to my manager first thing. Oh, and the price tag was actually an old tag. It was supposed to be replaced by a new one that was a higher price. California economy, everyone. Man, that customer sounded like a real jerk. What would you say if a customer treated you like that? He did nothing wrong. As a matter of fact, he was right. Entitled kid kicks me in the shin, then his mother claims it's my fault. So in the summer of last year, I went on a day trip to York, which is a city in the UK. It's been a personal favorite place to visit because of its history, and because of this fondness, I found myself face to face with an entitled parent. I went to see York Minster, a cathedral there, and then get some food. Well, when I got out of it, I was feeling hot and an ice cream truck was outside, so I decided to get one. In comes entitled kid. Entitled kid pointing at my ice cream. Give me that. Me. Excuse me, did you ever learn manners? Entitled kid. I don't care. Give me the ice cream. I took a closer look at the kid, and he seemed about 8 or 9, old enough to know that he can't be that rude to strangers. Me. No, I bought this with my own money. I'm not gonna give you. Entitled kid cutting me off. Shut up. Give me it. Me. No, it's mine and I paid for it. Go ask your mom for one. Entitled kid. I'm not gonna. Me. Well, you're not getting mine. I stood up and started to walk away when this kid ran in front of me and started to pull his leg back. Immediately, I stepped to the side. Me, as he swings his leg. You're gonna have to try harder than that. I grew up with an. I stopped as pain shot up my right leg, and I realized he hit me in the shin. I dropped my ice cream and went to sit down. Me. Why would you assault someone like that? That's for not giving me your ice cream. He pulled a face and stuck his tongue out as I held my leg in pain. Who knew an 8-year-old could cause so much damage? 10 minutes later, I was about to go and get food when I spot the kid again, with his mom and dad. I tap his mom's shoulder as his dad takes a photo of the cathedral. Me. Hey, earlier your son kicked me in the shin. Could you tell him off or something? Entitled mom. What did you say? My little baby would never do that. She ruffled the kid's hair as he smiled condescendingly. Me. Well, he did, and I have the mark to prove it. I was wearing shorts so anyone could see my lower legs, and I point to my right shin. Me. He was rude to me and told me to give him my ice cream, and when I didn't, he kicked me. Entitled mom. Well, it's your fault then. If you'd just given him the ice cream, then he wouldn't have kicked you. Me. Look, lady, I'm nice enough to not press charges for assault, but he didn't deserve my ice cream. He was rude, and frankly, I didn't want to throw my hard-earned money away, even if it's just a couple of pounds. At this point, the dad turns around and looks down to me. I'm 5'8", short genes run in my family. Dad. Hey, listen, we're sorry. I'll tell entitled kid off, and I'll buy you another ice cream if you want. Me. No, I'm fine, but thanks anyways. Just tell your kid off for me. I walked off, and the mother shouted back at me. Our little angel would never do that. He's a perfect boy. I don't care at this point and kept walking. Eventually, I found a good place to get some food and sat down. Guess who walks in the door while I'm halfway through a burger? If you guessed entitled mom, you were right. Following her was our little jerk and his dad. They glare at me, and this conversation ensues. Entitled mom. Where are your parents? I want them to make you get out. Me. What? I may be short, but you can tell I'm not a minor. I'm 21 for God's sake. Entitled mom. How dare you use the Lord's name in vain like that? You'd better get out of this store right now and let us sit there. Nice worker. Excuse me, could you keep it down? The other people are trying to eat, and could you leave this man alone? And who do you think you're talking to? Nice worker. I think I'm talking to an ungrateful Karen right now. What about you? Entitled mom. How dare you speak to a customer like that? Let me have a word with your manager. Nice worker picks up the phone and dials a number, and then she hands entitled mom the phone. I hear a ringing from nice worker's pocket, and she picks it up, pretending to have no idea what the call is about. Nice worker. Hello, how can I help you? Entitled mom, now red in the face. Stop lying. A manager wouldn't be sitting at the till. Nice worker. Well then, you can just get out. Entitled mom storms off, and the dad mouths a sorry to us both. Luckily, this story ends with an even happier ending as the worker slipped her number into my pudding, and now she's my girlfriend. She was actually the one who encouraged me to write this here, since in a month it will be a year since that entire ordeal. Speaking of ice cream, what's your favorite flavor ice cream of all time? Please let us know. I also love sherbet and frozen yogurt. Revenge is best served frozen. We don't own a car and live at the end of a cul-de-sac. I have people use my driveway all the time to turn around. It's not a huge deal to me. A little annoying when they compact the snow and it's harder to shovel, but whatever. One of my neighbors had a ride service come pick up their kid every day. The van would park in my spot and begin honking at like 8 a.m. I worked nights at the time. Half the time, he'd be half parked on my grass. I told my neighbor that I don't overly mind my spot being used, but not if he's going to honk like that every morning, and especially not if he's going to drive over what little lawn I have every time. She spoke with him, he ignored it. I spoke with him and got,
"What's your problem, man? It's not like you're using it."
To which I repeated that I don't mind him using it if he stays off my grass and doesn't honk every morning. Apparently, suggesting he wait till the kid notices he's there, or, God forbid, he have to drag his butt out of the car to knock on a door was just ridiculous and inhumane of me. So I left a recycle bin at the foot of my driveway. He just ran over it. I called the dispatch for the ride service and was told they are subcontractors and technically self-employed, but they will pass along the message. I wake up the next day to pounding on my door. Dude is mad. Him.
"How dare you call my boss, you stupid jerk! What the heck is wrong with you?"
Me. Well, it's quite simple. You were told not to use my driveway if you were going to drive on my lawn and wake me up every morning. Now get off my doorstep.
"I'll sue you if I lose my job because of you."
You've been warned. Don't trespass on my driveway or property again. Dude storms off in a huff. So this happened on a Thursday. The kids have a PD day the next, and it's supposed to be one of those delightful Canadian weekends where it drops to like -40 Celsius. For my American friends, -40 is where Celsius and Fahrenheit meet up, so it's so cold. So that night, I grabbed one of my more beat-up plastic garbage bins, made sure to plug all the holes with a generous amount of duct tape, stuck a sign on it that read, "Private property, driveway not for public use," and proceeded to fill it to the brim with water. Now, before anyone thinks I'm a jerk willing to potentially endanger anyone in the car, I'd like to point out that my neighbor's kid is the first to be picked up, so it's just the driver in the car. Cue Monday morning. He sees the garbage can, backs up a bit more, and defiantly charges the garbage can as if to teach me a lesson, and proceeds to cause some pretty serious damage to the front end of his car. Dude gets out fuming, calls the cops, and comes pounding on my door, screaming about how I'm going to buy him a new car and that I'm about to be arrested. Cop. So let me make sure I understand this situation. He asked you not to park here if you couldn't refrain from honking, then warned you not to park here and put up a barrier. Now you expect him to be charged and pay for damages you caused yourself to your vehicle in an attempt to destroy his own personal property? I will never forget the look on his face when the officer said, "Yeah, that's not how this works," and turned to me, asking if I wanted to pursue charges for him damaging my personal property. I just gave him the most crap-eating grin I could muster and said, "Nah, I think we're good." I then went back inside to enjoy a morning coffee while watching him from my kitchen window as he paced back and forth in the cold, waiting for a tow truck and having to call the company he worked for to explain why they needed to send out another driver to complete his route. A cul-de-sac can also be used to describe a street with no exit, which is exactly where my home is. It's easier for them to use my driveway than three-point turn their way out like Austin Powers. I was drinking my morning coffee because they were 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. shifts, so nights, but not quite overnights, and I usually got up around 10 a.m. Every time he'd wake me up around 8 or so, I wouldn't be able to get back to sleep, hence why I needed him to stop. Unjustly fire me? Let me take down your business real quick. This happened a few years ago, and it still makes me giggle with glee to this day. I'm a 34-year-old female who has always been a bit of a tomboy. I like cars, sports, and reptiles. When I was 25, I wanted a career change and finally followed my dreams of working in an auto repair shop as a painter, like my father always did. To start my education, I needed to already have a job at an auto repair shop as an intern. So I searched and called a lot of companies to see if they had spots. There were literally several companies that laughed at me because there's no place for a woman on the work floor. Disheartened, I tried one final company who said he'd take a chance with me. I was thrilled. I was promised lots of opportunities to learn and a steady job after graduation. I started a week later, and the first 2 weeks were awesome. I learned a lot and was promised even more opportunities. He promised I would have 2 to 3 hours a week of private time with the resident painter for practice. Soon after, though, it went downhill. The owner had a bid on a contract with a large city in our country to restore underground containers. I had to sand them down, put sealant on the edges, and prepare them for painting. Tedious work, but I did it diligently. The promised practice time never happened. After a while, all I did, day in and day out, 8 hours a day, was sand down underground containers. By the end of the day, my hands and wrists were numb from the vibrations. This, by the way, is illegal. You're not allowed to sand with a pneumatic sanding machine for more than 4 hours a day in my country, as it causes severe wrist and hand issues. After several months, the contract with the city ended, and I hoped my promised practice time would come. But no, it didn't. I was given jobs that had nothing to do with my education. I was told to do jobs that a contractor should do, like put rebar in front of the windows, repair the sliding doors, repair walls, and other small things. Basically, nothing to do with my desire to become a painter. After 6 months of doing literally nothing that I could count to my education, my boss called me into his office. He told me he was fed up with my attitude. He made a mistake hiring me. I was fired on the spot. I was heartbroken and cried the whole way home. I didn't get it. I put 110% into my job, working hard, always on time, staying late if needed, and never complained. I didn't understand what happened and was pretty down for a while. However, several days later, I found out I was pregnant, which helped me get over my downness. We had been trying for over a year, so we were ecstatic. When the time came that my final paycheck should come in, nothing happened. A week after it normally came in, I called, but was told to not complain and it would be transferred shortly. 2 weeks later, still nothing. Called again and got a very irate boss on the line, yelling at me and calling me things I will not repeat here. I was fed up and contacted my lawyer. Here comes the revenge. In my country, there's apparently a few laws that my boss broke without me even knowing about them. First, you're not allowed to fire somebody without reasonable cause. You need to document bad behavior and give the employee a write-up. After 2 write-ups, you're allowed to terminate. My boss never did this. Unlawful termination can end in a fine, and the employee has a right to get as many monthly pays as the employment contract would have continued if the employee wasn't terminated, which would mean I had a right to another 6 months of pay. Second, you must pay the final paycheck within a week of termination. We were now going on week 4. After the first week, an employee is entitled to compensation of up to $100 per day of not receiving their paycheck, meaning I was now entitled to at least $2,100 extra pay. My lawyer wrote up a letter to my boss stating we would be pursuing my legal rights. He didn't respond. A week later, we sent another letter, increasing the compensation for late payment as we went. After a month of my lawyer not getting any response, suddenly I received my pay. No compensation, nothing, just basic pay. My lawyer recommended to go to small claims court, and so we did. Mind you, it takes about 3 months before you can appear before court. He didn't even show up in court, but sent a statement through his lawyer saying how I was a horrible employee, blah blah blah. However, he had no proof whatsoever, but I did. I had my performance reports from 1 month into employment and 4 months into employment, and they were stellar. The judge saw right through my boss's BS and awarded me 6 months of pay, $12,000, 4 months of late payment compensation. This is because he didn't pay the full amount my lawyer requested, as was my legal right, about $12,000. Legal fees, now about $3,000. I was paid the same week. He was then also charged with a fine for violating employment laws. He had to pay $50,000. This resulted in the Employment Bureau, this agency makes sure companies comply with employment laws, etc., investigating the company. They discovered the building I worked at was unsafe. The foundation was unstable, walls were crumbling and tilting. He was told to make repairs or they would close him down within a month. By accident, they discovered he was also cheating on his taxes, so IRS got involved. He got charged with embezzlement and tax evasion for both his companies. He had to pay back all taxes he evaded, plus a 100% fine, coming to a staggering $250,000 over several years. He didn't have that kind of money, and after struggling for about 2 months, which resulted in him not paying his other employees, he went belly up. Both businesses shut down, and the building I worked at even got demolished. 10 years later, it's still an empty plot, and if I ever feel put down by somebody, I take a short time to drive to that place, and it reminds me, karma will eventually step in. Have any of you ever had a boss who was treating you very badly? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know. The boss is never the problem. It's always the lazy employees. If I ask for it, I can obviously afford it. I work at a breakfast diner as a host, which means that I manage guests at the front lobby and assign them to a table and server, and will also take care of any and all to-go orders. Predictably, I've been restricted to only handling to-go orders as of late. It's been hectic, but I've been scraping by. I've also been scraping up a lot of interesting encounters, one of which occurred over the phone, and as I answered with my customer greeting, the response I got told me well enough just what kind of call this was going to be. Hi, thank you for calling our location. How can I help you? Pancake platter. Right, so it's one of those customers. Ordering for pickup? No problem. Can I have a name and phone number, please? Cue the long-suffering sigh that can only ever come from someone feeling that they've been inconvenienced by having to do more than just the bare minimum in an interaction with a retail worker. The customer lists off his name and phone number with an annoyance he did not even bother to conceal. I've dealt with this kind of thing before, a lot more frequently as of late even, so I don't let it faze me. I get started on his order, repeating everything he tells me just to make sure there aren't any misunderstandings. I kind of have to anyways. Our restaurant only has one phone line, and when I'm on a call and someone else tries to call us, this high-pitched, distorted noise plays over the call and completely blocks the other person, meaning I can't hear what they're saying. Great design, phone company. As our call progresses, his annoyance only grows. Then comes the faded, "Can I have this food item that doesn't come with the meal?" request. Sure, but it's going to be an extra charge. Is that okay? I must have accidentally cussed him out without realizing, instead of telling him about the upcharge I thought I was talking about, because he suddenly got very hostile with me. If I didn't think I could afford it, I wouldn't have asked for it. You think I care that it's extra? I just want my dang food. Okay then, that stunned me. I stammered a bit before trying to pick up where I left off and resuming with the rest of his order, which continued to be as unpleasant as his mood. By the end of it, I read out his total. That'll be $14.50. There was a pause over the line. Sir? You know what? Cancel that order. You guys are nothing but scammers and raising your prices for no dang reason. And then he hung up. Yes, he asked for something he couldn't afford after all. A hefty $14.50. This was bewildering to deal with in the middle of a to-go breakfast rush. This isn't as extreme as the stuff I've seen on here, but I felt maybe you guys would enjoy hearing about this strange encounter. Speaking of breakfast, what's your favorite breakfast food of all time? Please let us know. I could go for some pancakes, waffles, toasted strudels, or Pop-Tarts. So, you want to break my skateboard? During the summer of 2007, my friends and I were hardcore into skating. I was around 13 years old at the time. My friends and I just started getting pretty good, which is what you'd expect considering we skated 24/7. I grew up with a single mother who worked 3 jobs just to make ends meet, so I didn't really have much growing up, besides my friends and a skateboard. It was my birthday early that summer, and one of my friend's parents, they essentially raised me, bought me a new skateboard, which meant a lot to me, considering that's all I got that year. In my neighborhood, there was this curb which came in from the street and wrapped around a tree and dumped back into the road. Once we figured out we can grind around this, that's all we did if we weren't at the skate park or doing God knows what else. Well, the problem with this curb is that it was in front of the neighbor's house, who was known across the neighborhood as being the typical annoying, nosy, and complaining sack of potatoes. Anyways, one day my friend and I are skating the curb like we nearly did every day that summer. But this time, he came out and confronted my friends. Unfortunately for me, I didn't see him, and I was coming flying in to hit the curb. Last second, I see him and bail from the curb, and my board landed right in front of him. With one fell swoop, he planted his foot directly through my board, and just like that, my birthday gift is broken. Fast forward 3 years, and I have a new stepdad who made life that much better, and I actually started to have a relationship with my mother and him. During that summer, I was helping my stepdad and his car garage, helping fix and service cars and a bunch of stuff. Then one day, the man who broke my board came in and needed help with his car. As soon as he saw me, he reminded me about what he did to my board, in a joking-like fashion, like what he did was funny. My neighbor came in saying that his brakes keep making a squeaking noise and demanded, quite rudely if I'm honest, we fix it instantly, saying that, "I want my car to be in tip-top shape, whatever you have to do," then smirked at me and said, "I can afford it." My stepdad said we were swamped and that he will call him when it's ready. He eventually sighed and said some crude remark as he stormed out, leaving the car. I told my stepdad that I'll look at the car. Turns out all he needed was a simple oil change. Here's where the malicious compliance kicks in. It did occur to me that he said he wanted his car in tip-top shape and that he could afford it. I noticed that, well, he would certainly want some brand new filters. While we're at it, let's replace the battery and maybe the whole brake system as well. It's important to note, even though we didn't live in a rich area, this man had quite a bravado about him and would constantly flex his seemingly minimal wealth upon everyone he could. I ended up racking up closer to $2,000 worth of parts and was quite pleased with myself. Fast forward to the end of the day. My father had left and I was going to lock the shop up, and my neighbor came to collect. Gave him the bill as he looks in anger and disbelief, saying, "Why did you replace the battery and brakes and whatnot?" I replied simply with, "You said tip-top shape. Thought you could afford it." He then begrudgingly agreed and paid his bill. Did he break a maybe $50 skateboard? Yes. Did I rack up pointless replacements on perfectly fine parts that we later reused? Yes. Now that's some good revenge. What would you do if somebody broke your skateboard? Please let us know. Oh, I just love breaking other people's things. Teaching entitled students, music prodigy. Hey guys, I'm back with another story of my teaching years. You all seem to love them, and I have plenty to share. So here we go. We've got entitled dad, we've got entitled student, and we've got me. Backstory. This was pretty early in my teaching career. As I've said before, I love teaching kindergarten, but I have taught all the way to 6th grade. Although my degree is in elementary education, I have taught music theory before for older grades because I can play piano, and the district asked me to switch over to music for that year. Entitled student was in 6th grade and was one of the hardest older students I had ever worked with. He would speak out loud and make jokes for everyone to laugh at, and was generally rude and disrespectful to me and other students. Older students are all about respect and trust, which has to be built. He was in detention constantly. I was getting students ready for their Christmas concert. This is important for schools because not only does it showcase the students, but it can also bring in much needed money through raffles and snacks or baked goods, etc. I had decided to do auditions for musical solo parts for students. During the class time, I announced we would be having auditions later that week for specific parts. Entitled student starts making jokes and goofing in class like usual. Me. Are you ready? Because it seems like you are not ready. Entitled student. Oh yeah, I'm ready. Ready for Santa Claus loving. As he makes a humping motion to which the class laughed. Me. No thanks. That behavior choice is not acceptable. Do you need to visit the admin's office today? Entitled student. No. Okay. Well, I want to see that reflected in your choices then. I don't have to listen to you. You're just the music teacher, not a real teacher. Excuse me? You heard me. That's when I sent him to the admin. Now, at this point, it wasn't an entitlement issue, but more of a disrespect issue. Then the next part of this story happened, which blew my mind. Later that day, I happened to see entitled student who sheepishly asks if he can audition for the solo part for the concert. I asked him if he really wanted to and was he serious about the part. He said he was and really wanted to try. So I decided to give him a chance and let him audition. I want students to succeed. When audition day came, he stepped up in front of everyone and started singing, "I like big butts and I cannot lie," while displaying more of his air thrusts and some air hand swaps against an invisible butt. My patience had been running low with his behavior in class, and finally I told him to go to the admin office. I then announced the solo winners later that day and went on with my classes, etc. The next day, Entitled Dad requested a meeting with me and his son to discuss some very bothersome news. Entitled Dad: I am here because my son has informed me that you do not want him to get a solo part in the Christmas concert. Me: he has to audition for a part. If he auditioned, he may have had a chance to get a part. Entitled Dad: he told me he did audition, and you didn't give it to him. Me: actually, he didn't audition. He just got up and sang "I like big butts." Entitled Dad: that's a song, isn't it? Well, yes, it is, but it's not appropriate for a Christmas concert audition. I had 2 of the solo pieces handed out for students to use because those were the parts that were open. Entitled Dad: so what? Now, you're the person in charge of saying what is okay and what is not. That is censorship, and I will not have my son, who's the best singer here, lose a solo because you feel the need to censor him. He deserves that part. Me: I'm sorry, but I have already chosen the parts for other students. He could have had a chance if he actually auditioned. Also, it's my job to make sure he's not distracting the class or making them uncomfortable. If his behavior does that, then he will get sent out. How dare you treat my son this way? No wonder he hates music class. I am taking this to the admin. Luckily, this admin was very well aware of the student's behavior, considering he was always in her office from other teachers as well as myself. After telling her what happened, she said this parent was making trips to the school at least twice a month to demand that we treat his son better. I let him audition again because I was asked to, but he didn't come to the audition time. He said he didn't care anymore about the solos. I found out a few years later that the Entitled Dad sent his son to a gifted school because he thought he was not getting his gifted needs met. From what I understand, he was kicked out of the gifted school and then sent to a different public school. Apparently, he wasn't gifted at all, but very much used to getting his way and acting out whenever he wanted. Were any of you guys class clowns making people laugh? Or were any of you quiet and kind of stuck to yourselves? Please let us know. One time I put my bubble gum in a girl's hair. I haven't worked there in 15 years. This is my sister's story, not mine. Backstory. Way back in the day, my sister worked at a drive-in restaurant named after a blue hedgehog. She worked there her senior year from 2004 to 2005. I was a small thing during this time, but it doesn't have anything to do with the story that happens so many years later. My sister is now a teacher at a local high school. Like I said, my sister is a teacher. It was December when this happened. She was getting ready for finals and also getting stressed at the same time. My sister called me up and asked if I wanted to go to the mall that weekend. The weekend rolls around and we go to the mall. We stay at the mall for a couple of hours. It was around lunchtime and we stopped in the food court and got some Chinese food. My sister's phone rang. She answered it and the conversation went like this. Keep in mind, it was only one-sided. Sister: hello? What? No, I think you have the wrong number. Yes, I am sister's name. But no, I cannot come. Why not? Well, 1, it's Saturday and I am a teacher. Look, I don't know how you got this number, but I don't work there. Don't call me again. I looked at my sister as she hung up and asked what was that about. Me: what was that about? Sister: that was the restaurant. You know, the one I used to work at in high school? They called saying I was on the schedule. Me, trying not to laugh. Why the heck would your name be on the schedule? You haven't been there since I was 8. We're 10 years apart. She got the job there when I was 7 and left when I was turning 8. Sister: I know, right? We continue our lunch without further interruption. Later that week, my sister had contacted the manager of the restaurant she used to work at. Since the time she had been there, the restaurant had changed managers several times. She called the manager up, and the conversation went like this from what she told me. Sister: hi, I would like to speak to the manager, please. The manager comes to the phone. This is the manager. Is there a problem? Sister: Yeah, I was wondering why you still had my information from over 15 years ago. Manager:
Excuse me?
Sister: Well, you called me on Saturday, remember? Saying I had to come in? Look, I just wanted to tell you that information is no longer valid. I am 32 years old. I don't live in that town anymore. I haven't lived there since I was 18. I'm a teacher. I want you to throw out that information, okay? Manager:
Well, this is your name, right? Look, I have your information right here.
Sister is beyond done with the manager. Sir, I'm trying to be nice. Look at the address. That is not my home address. I haven't lived there since I was 20. My home address gives her home address. Manager:
Well, I don't know what to tell you. I have your information right here. If you don't come in, I'm going to fire you. This has been going on long enough.
Sister: I don't care. Just get rid of my information. She hung up after that. My sister didn't hear back from the manager until a few weeks later, and he told her that he was sorry there was a huge mix-up. When my sister left the restaurant in 2005, they were switching over to computers for their recording, and somehow her information was never deleted and was kept in the computer for a good decade. He didn't know how her information came again after so many years. He just assumed that she was the new girl he had hired who had a similar last name to hers, but only showed up a couple of times to work. After that, she never heard anything from that manager, but she said that she got flashbacks from her time at that restaurant and vowed to never go back there again. Speaking of the Blue Hedgehog restaurant, what's your favorite fast food place of all time? Please let us know. I could go for some McDonald's myself. You want everything to be on time? Then I will update you every possible moment. When I was an intern doing my general surgery rotation, I started having problems with a man I will call Dr. Dino, an anesthesiologist that had been around in our hospital since the Jurassic period and refused to retire for some unknown reason. For context, I did my practices in a small town hospital that didn't do a lot of surgical procedures, and about 80% of those were low-level urgencies. Thus, the surgeons and anesthesiologists did 24-hour shifts in 2 to 3 day intervals. What was the problem then? Dr. Dino hated doing his work. The only way he would not complain about surgeries was if they were done before 10 a.m. and if he received a 1-hour notice. In any other scenario, he would start complaining that us, the interns, basically the main administrative workforce in that place, were too lazy, too slow, and spent our time doing nothing. The one thing he hated the most was waking up at night, as he had this crazy theory that every night procedure was done late only because an intern had messed up during the day. He called us the worst group he had ever had. I later found out he said the same of every new group of interns and sent dozens of complaints to our general coordinator, who in turn would reprimand us constantly. One day he reached out to our dean's office because, according to him, I have delayed a patient's procedure for 10 hours because I was not paying attention to the ER referrals. While it was true that the patient had arrived in the early morning, he had been left in observation by the ER unit doctors. They were only able to reevaluate him at noon, 7 p.m., because they were full of work that day, and that was the moment I got their referral. Taking into account the time it took me to check his medical record, present it to the surgeon, and do the paperwork, and for the nurses to take him to the OR, the guy was starting his surgery at 9 p.m. The only thing that saved me from being expelled was the timestamps on the medical record that proved I was right. When Dr. Dino saw he didn't win the round by getting me in trouble, he forced our coordinator to implement a rule that stated we had to report to Dr. Dino every possible surgical patient's process so that he could check if we were doing our job right. We were all so tired of this grandpa's BS, we decided the best way to get him back was by obeying him to the inch. After that day, we would take any stomach ache with a pain scale of greater than 7 and a mild abdominal defense as a possible case and did an hourly update until the patient was intervened or was given a different diagnosis by one of the doctors. We also stopped waiting for referrals and actively searched for the cases in the ER at any free time we had. Another detail was that we were only allowed to use the official unit cell phones, Nokia 2000 types that could barely make calls, meaning no text messages and no silencing because any of our reports could be a real emergency. The result of our system? He was receiving an average of 30 to 50 calls a day and night with our updates, meaning he got interrupted more and slept less than before. After 4 to 5 shifts like this, He lifted his stupid rule, and we never heard another one of his complaints. Sometimes you gotta be careful what you ask for. Like when you ask for a thumbs up and they give you a thumbs down instead. Deny you were wrong and threaten me with detention? Well, I'll complete the work and be the only one to do it. When I was in senior school, age 11 to 16 for the non-British, my mother was the chair of governors at my school. For the most part, there was no issue. The occasional teacher would make a joke, saying to a student if they had a problem, they should complain to my mother. But it was always in jest. The only time it ever caused an issue was with my maths department. I've always been very good at math from an early age due to my father. He worked in computing and taught me how to do math the way he was shown. It made sense and helped me be a lot quicker than most. So naturally, I was in top level of class and one of the top students in that class as well. As part of being in the top class, we actually did 2 GCSEs in math, mathematics and statistics. We had the same amount of lessons, but more workload. We had to do more coursework though, and that is where the issue came in. At the beginning of the year, our teacher set our coursework, but never gave us a hand-in date, confirmed by not one other student having a date written down anywhere for this assignment. The coursework was quite heavy. I cannot remember quite what it was on, unfortunately, but do remember it was a considerable amount of work to complete. On a Monday, my last lesson of the days was math, where our teacher reminded us that our coursework was due on the Thursday and hoped everyone would have it complete as no one had come in for help. After class, everyone was confused and concerned. We had not been told when it was due, and it was a lot of work to complete. We had not been given a date and now had to write a full mini dissertation in a few days. Panic ensued. When I get home, my mother asks how my day has been. As it's pressing on my mind, I tell her about the panic that has developed among my classmates. I tell her as my mother, not thinking about her chair of governor's role. I get to work on the project as I know I have limited time to work, staying up quite late to try and get as much done. The following day, this has been pressing on my mother's mind. One of the teachers in her school has messed up in her mind, so she goes to talk to the head teacher. This results with me on the Wednesday being called to the math department to have a private meeting with my math teacher and head of department. When I say meeting, I mean that in loose terms. It was essentially 10 minutes of these guys berating me for going to my mother with an issue at school, that no one else had raised concerns and no one had been to the extra study lessons after school to help with the coursework. The existence of these also turned out to be a surprise to other students. I said calmly and explained my side, and that no one would have the work complete, which naturally they would not accept. It was of course just me. I was threatened with detention if I didn't have it complete, as I would be the only one. Oh, and they also chastised me for discussing the issue with my mother because she was the chair of governors, telling me that I was not to discuss it with her further. Deadline day comes the following day, and guess who was the only one set with completed coursework in front of them? Me. I gladly handed it in when the teacher called for the completed work. The students then proved and reiterated everything I had said in our meeting. When I got home later that day, my mother asked me what happened. To be compliant with my teachers, I replied, "I have been told I am not allowed to tell you by my teachers." This naturally annoyed my mother and caused her once again to go into the school to talk to the head teacher. This resulted in another meeting between the head of department, my teacher, and the head. From all reports, that meeting did not go well for the teachers. But what could they say to me? I did everything they asked. I never received an apology, but honestly, the vindication was all I truly needed, as they know they messed up. Entitled parents make my employee cry, get their free meal voucher revoked. Before we begin, a little bit of backstory. I am a manager for a chain sushi restaurant somewhere in the western United States. This restaurant chain offers something very special to a select few customers who either show that they deserve it, aka spend so much on sushi over time, or make a good enough impression on the staff that they recommend you get one. Doesn't happen nearly as often as you'd think. A set of platinum chopsticks that entitles you to as much free sushi as you can stuff your gut with. The cast. We've got entitled mom. We've got entitled kid. We've got the father, whose sanity I question for staying with this lady. And we've got the employee. The day started off like any other day. Going in at 10:30, calling an all-hands meeting, getting everyone pepped up and ready for the day's opening, prepping counter space and cleaning utensils, typical restaurant stuff. We're about 10 minutes from opening when one of my newer employees walks in. She used her front door key and just came right on in. Unfortunately, entitled kid, entitled mom, and dad all followed in soon after her. At this restaurant, it's custom to seat yourself and a member of waitstaff to come take orders. And when I say custom, I mean there are signs literally every 5 feet on each bench and table side saying to be seated and wait. Now, from this point in the story, I'm piecing everything together from employee's side of the story and what I saw on security tapes after handling the issue in person. The trio walks in. Instead of being seated, walked directly up to the cashier's desk, which there's nobody currently at because we're still 5 minutes from officially opening. Entitled mom, "Can we get some dang service?" Employee then snaps to attention and hops directly over to the desk. Entitled mom, "I want my free sushi, and I want it now." She then slams the platinum chopsticks on the counter and starts spouting off everything on the menu she wanted. Employee verifies that these are her chopsticks with some difficulty. Each pair is specifically registered to one person with a serial number stamped on the side. Employee, "Will it just be you ordering today? These chopsticks only entitle the person they're registered with to free food." Entitled mom, "No, these chopsticks mean I get as much as I want, and I want enough for me and my family." Employee, "I'm very sorry, ma'am, but the contract that you signed to get those chopsticks clearly stated that you were only allowed one serving of your choosing at a time. Plus the—" "Listen here, you snot-nosed brat. I don't care what you say. You're going to give me my free food, or I'll go to your manager and have you tossed out. Serve me now." It's at this point I'm brought into the picture. Employee comes stumbling into my office, tears streaming down her face, and 3 other employees right behind her to quickly relay the story. I'll spare you the rest of the details, as there was some not-so-clean language spoken between me and entitled mom. But here are some of the highlights. Entitled kid decided it would be a good idea to run around every table and knock over all of the soy sauce bottles, the ones that don't have a lid. Then run over to the drink machine behind the employee's only counter and completely soak himself. Entitled mom started shrieking at the top of her lungs that she's going to get what she wants, and we're going to pay for her son's dry cleaning before throwing the peppermint bowl beside the register across the room. Meanwhile, dad just stands there like this is all normal and smiles. Before everything was said and done, she managed to not only get her platinum chopsticks revoked, but she was also gifted a lovely pair of matching bracelets by a local police officer. Employee was sent home for the rest of the day with full pay while I took over her spot on that shift. Luckily, the rest of the day went smoothly. Edit. Much apologies for not sharing the rest of the details. Unfortunately, I have to cover my butt in case somebody from corporate sees this. I very much like my job title, and I'd very much like to keep it. Now I really want some Chinese food. Do you guys like Chinese food? And if so, what are your favorite items? Please let us know. Ooh, Chinese food? Hurry up and finish these stories so we can go to Panda Express. Insulting the director is not the best way to make an impression. All names contained herein are fictitious, hence why there are quotation marks around them. Cast. We've got me, quirky creative movie geek. We've got Molly, conniving wannabe actress who is as talented as she is honest. We've got Jason, the producer and actor. We've got Lacey, actress, director, writer, and all-around sweetheart. This story takes place back when Molly was trying to branch out from being an actress into writing and producing. Her self-entitlement ran so deep, she believed if she repeated her lies or half-baked opinions, they somehow magically became the truth or facts. She also expected everyone to accept whatever word salad she spewed at face value. Unfortunately for her, the world does not work that way. As for Molly's job qualifications, her minimal community theater experience as a 20-something circa the mid-1980s somehow translated to her being the second coming of Meryl Streep. Her writing was beyond terrible, bordering on indecipherable. Despite no professional experience as a writer, she did have a knack for making things up. To date, her resume is her best work of fiction. As far as producing goes, unless you count bowel movements, she had zero experience. To set the scene, Molly and I were still on somewhat good terms when this incident occurred. Neither of us had representation, i.e. manager, agent. We would attend networking events together and met people who could potentially lead to employment opportunities. I'm good at talking to people because I speak from the heart and I don't lie. My passion and love for show business is clear, especially to those who have the same interests. I tend to be rather outgoing and am happy-go-lucky by nature. I also have a rather witty sense of humor. I often use it as an icebreaker and have since branched out into doing stand-up comedy. It's a lot of fun. It was at one such networking event where I was a guest of actress extraordinaire, Lacey. In addition to being a phenomenal performer, she was a whiz behind the scenes. This particular occasion was a screening of her short film that had been accepted to a local film festival. I was allowed to bring a +1, so I, rather foolishly, extended that concession to Molly. Never one to miss an opportunity to show off her immeasurable beauty. Molly had, for lack of a better phrase, dressed to impress. She looked like a college professor dressing down to crash a sorority keg party. Picture a late 40s blonde, blue-eyed woman with bad highlights, obvious hair extensions, a pound of makeup caked on, in form-fitting skinny jeans, a midriff-bearing crop top with a button-down overshirt revealing far too much, tottering around in spiked platform hooker heels that gave her diminutive stature a 5-inch boost. Molly stuck out like a sore thumb. She was getting a lot of stares and attention, just not for the right reasons. I was dressed conservatively in my favorite royal blue polo shirt, black jeans, and slip-on patent leather dress shoes. Midway through the screening's after-party, Molly was stewing because I had abandoned her to go off and talk to other people. Her negativity was like a radar laser, and I felt it when she glared at me from across the room. I was in the middle of telling my new acquaintances about my script, a feature-length original comedy, when I saw her approaching. She tapped me on my arm and asked me to join her while she had a cigarette. I politely excused myself and reluctantly followed behind her. I knew I was about to get chewed out. Once we were outside and she lit one up, it quickly became apparent that her nose was out of joint. Molly snarkily, "Well, aren't you the belle of the ball?" Me, confused. "What are you talking about?" Molly, "I helped get you invited to this event, and you ignore me?" Me, "Whoa, hold the heck on. 1, you didn't give me my invitation, Lacey did. 2, it's called mingling and networking. You should try it sometime. After all, you're the one with 20 years experience in the business." Molly, "Don't get smart with me. You know I'm not good at that kind of thing." "Cut the crap, Molly. You love attention and always have something to say. Just go start talking to people and make a good impression." She went to say something else, and I just walked away while she stayed outside to finish her cigarette. About 30 minutes later, after finishing my conversation with my acquaintances, all gave favorable feedback on my comedy, by the way, I headed over to the snack table to get a glass of punch. This is where I ran into Jason, the producer and male lead of Lacey's film. This man was gorgeous. He was a beautiful Filipino version of a young Tom Cruise. Jet black, shoulder-length silky hair, chiseled cheekbones, 8-pack abs, and teeth so pearly white I could almost see my reflection in them. Me, "Thanks for getting me an invite, Jason. I've met so many talented people tonight, and they seem super nice." Jason, "You're welcome." "No, they don't seem nice. They are nice." He hugs me. At the time, I was very single and lonely. It felt wonderful. Me, "I just wish more people were like that." Jason, "You mean Molly?" Me, "Is it that obvious? I don't hate her. It's just that she turns every single minor disagreement into an all-out war. Seriously, earlier she took it as a personal affront that I was talking to people who weren't her." Jason, "Why do you even tolerate her? It's clear that she only has time for you when it's convenient for her." Me, "I care about her. I want to help her. She's my friend." Jason, "Some people are beyond help. You ask me. She's just using you. Watch your back." Jason gave me another hug and then went off to mingle with some colleagues. I finished my punch and was off to find Molly. I saw her talking to the lady of the hour, Lacey. She was in the middle of an animated discussion about the film she had just seen, Lacey's film. She was making a series of unflattering comments about the entire picture. Lacey listened with her arms crossed and nodded in a way similar to how a mother listens to her kid talk about the first day of kindergarten. Molly: the acting wasn't good. I've been an actress for a long time. I have 20 years experience in theater, so I know a bad performance when I see it. My heart sank when I realized Molly was trash-talking the film she had just seen to its director/leading lady. I approached her from behind. I tapped Molly on the shoulder and tried to get her attention. Me, anxiously: apologies, Lacey. Molly, can I talk to you for a minute? She didn't even turn around and just put her finger up in my face. At that point, I was done. She dug her own grave and was about to fall in. Unseen by Molly, Lacey winked and gave me an "I got this" look. I casually walked back over to the snack table, which was only about 10 feet away from where they were standing. It was like I was watching a train wreck. I wanted to look away, but couldn't bring myself to. Molly: sorry about that. Lacey: quite all right. Molly, condescending: OP feels a little out of place at these events. He's like the socially awkward little brother I never had. Lacey: I'm enjoying your critique of the film. Please continue. Molly smugly chuckled at Lacey's response. Where was I? You were giving some very colorful commentary on the performance of the film. Molly: oh yeah, the acting. Not nearly as bad as the sound and the lighting. I saw equipment reflected in windows and car doors. They need to fire their editor. Lacey, death stare: you do know that I wrote, produced, and starred in the film that you're slamming, right? Molly's face fell and turned the color of freshly fallen snow. She looked around the room for me, and the expression on her face was one of utter horror. I shrugged and shook my head in disgust. Lacey, by that point, had calmly walked away, leaving Molly to collect what was left of her shattered dignity. She quickly approached me. Molly: God. Me: cat got your tongue? I can't believe you left me alone like that. Me: I told you to network and mingle, not upset the guest of honor. Molly: do you have any idea how stupid you made me look? Me: don't even try to put that on me. You did that all on your own. I didn't know who she was. Me, incredulously: you need to pay attention more. You just watched her film. She had a prominent role in it. Of course, you would have known that if you hadn't slept through most of the showcase. Molly, shakily: do you think she's mad at me? Me: Lacey doesn't hold grudges, but I can't speak for her personally. In my opinion, I think you burned a very important bridge. But I was just talking crap as usual. Your incessant need for attention is getting old. You never know who you're talking to or who's watching you. If you don't knock it off, you're gonna end up ruining your reputation. I left to go find Jason and Lacey. I wanted to express that Molly's ham-handed opinions and unprofessional behavior should not reflect on me in any way, shape, or form. Fortunately, to my relief, they didn't declare me guilty by association. After saying my goodbyes to those two wonderful people, whom I'm still friends with to this day, I left. Thankfully, Molly and I had driven separately. Had we carpooled, I would have been forced to listen to one of her trademark entitled "Poor Me" rants as I wove my way through Friday night interstate traffic. If that had happened, I would have abandoned her for real, on the side of the road. I hope Molly learns that sometimes it's best to keep our opinions to ourselves. She did nothing wrong. She had every right to complain about that horrid movie. Lady yells at me for giving husky heat stroke. Anyone that knows anything about huskies is that they are double-coated. Their coats are meant to protect them from both heat and cold. Because of this, you shouldn't ever shave a husky except for medical reasons. I just need everyone to understand this before I explain what happened. I have an elderly neighbor. I've been walking her dog, Mo, for a couple years now. He's a big, fluffy husky that loves playing with his frisbee. Due to restrictions slowly being lifted, it's safe to take him on walks again. I don't take him far, just to a little baseball field down the road where we can play in a fenced-in area for a bit. The other day, I took Mo out to the field, and we were doing our thing. On the other side of the fence are some mailboxes, and a car pulled up to them. I was focused on Mo, so I didn't pay attention to the woman that got out of it until she started yelling at me. Cast: we've got me, we've got entitled lady, and we've got the sweet neighbor lady. I had just thrown the frisbee, and Mo went after it with a vengeance when entitled lady started yelling. When I look over, she's practically climbing the fence. Me, can I help you? Entitled lady, what do you think you're doing with that poor animal? Do you realize how hot it is? Why haven't you shaved off all that fur? The poor deer is probably dying of heat stroke. Now, if you looked at Mo, he was fine, bouncing around all happy like a good doggo, and I had a couple bottles of water and a bowl in my bag for him. Me, ma'am, he's a husky. You can't shave his coat. Teenagers these days, I'm 21, don't get what they're talking about. Any vet would tell you, you have to shave your dog's fur when it gets hot out. Me, not with double-coated dogs. He needs his coat in order to stay cool. I'll spare you the next 10 minutes on repeat the same argument. She kept insisting I was going to give him a heat stroke. Finally, I had enough and hooked Mo to his leash to take him back home. Guys, the crazy lady followed me back to Sweet Neighbor Lady's house. I was really creeped out, but I took Mo up and knocked on the door. Sweet Neighbor Lady was grateful for my help and paid me in my customary batch of baked goods. But before I could walk away, entitled lady stormed up to the door. I couldn't make out what she was saying. She was screaming so loud at my neighbor. What I did make out at the end, I'm going to call the police on you for animal cruelty. Sweet neighbor, you do that, dear. I'll be here with my darling boy waiting for them. And she closed the door in her face. The look of self-righteous anger on this woman's face was priceless. She stomps off back to her car, and I went back to my house. I sat on my deck watching the lady talk on the phone in her car. Turns out she actually did call the police. I wasn't actually around when the cops showed up, but Sweet Neighbor told me it was all pretty cut and dry. The officer checked out her dog, saw nothing wrong, and left. Entitled lady was furious Mo wasn't taken away and came pounding on Sweet Neighbor's door. Sweet Neighbor didn't even bother opening the door, just told her to leave or she would be reported for trespassing. And we haven't seen heads or tails of the woman since. Huskies are such cool dogs. Do any of you guys have dogs? And if so, what kind are they? Please let us know. My poodle is the best doggo, beating the system by adhering to the rules. Many years ago, I had a job which permitted me to travel around the world a fair amount. Travel. Remember that. But I digress. As a part of that travel, I thought it wise to join a few frequent flyer and hotel rewards type schemes. I had little control over my travel plans and frequently would use different airlines and stay in different hotels. Whatever was the cheapest was the rule. Anyway, the time came when I was lucky enough to be booked into one of the really big name hotel groups. So naturally, I wanted to make sure I was enrolled in their reward scheme to start collecting nights and some sort of status points. Unfortunately, the online sign-up had a slight glitch. Even though I had definitively filled out my details correctly and even had a welcome email summarizing as much, something went amiss in their database and my surname was registered as both my first name and my surname. So, after that initial welcome email, every other greeting or communication was addressed to Mr. Surname. Annoying, but I felt I could live with it. As luck would have it, I ended up being able to stay in hotels owned by this hotel group a couple of times, and even though my status was equivalent to medieval serf, I decided that it was time to correct the mistake that had been in place for a couple of years. I found the contact number for members, provided my membership number, and explained the problem. I asked, quite simply, can you fix my first name to be my actual first name, not the glitch that it is now? After a long pause, I was told, no, that is a name change, and we would need to see a copy of your passport or driver's license to verify the change of your name. Well, that wasn't going to happen. Never mind the fact that I don't drive. I wasn't about to email their request, my passport image to them to fix this. Isn't there anything you can do? I mean, this is such an obvious error.
We're only permitted to make minor corrections to names, such as misspellings, and at maximum a 2-letter variation.
And with that, I hung up and developed a convoluted plan. Starting the next day and for the next few weeks thereafter, I would call up the hotel membership team, tell them there was a minor misspelling on my first name, and ask them to make a correction of 1, perhaps 2 letters. Actually, there's no N in my first name. Can you remove it? Yes, the C is silent, but it is there. Can you please add it? It's not a Y, it's an I, and so on and so forth. I made only the most subtle of changes with each call, and thankfully none of the agents I spoke to had ever helped me before. Hooray for large outsourced call centers. It took me about 8 or 9 calls, but eventually I was properly me again. An amusing side effect of these changes is that whenever you make a spelling correction, it reissues membership cards to members. You know, to be nice. For a long time, I had a stack of various bizarre spellings of my name on little plastic cards from this hotel. Every now and again, when checking in, I'd present one or more of these unusual variations, and the staff at check-in would be rather perplexed. I'd summarize the story, and the sympathetic laughs would occasionally result in a room upgrade or other minor perk. Not nearly as impactful as many of the other events recounted in this community, but it amused me greatly at the time. Now that's what I call thinking outside of the box. All he had to do was speak to a manager. Entitled parents must let their brat play my piano. Before we get into this, let me give you a little bit of backstory. I play piano, I am grade 2, and I don't take lessons anymore and learn whatever I want. I also live in a rural area near a beach, so recently quite a lot of people have been coming down even though we are in lockdown, but the road is closed by the police, so yeah. Because of that, people have been stopping in the town square and going for a walk from there. Cast. We've got me, we've got Karen, and we've got Entitled Kid. So basically, I've been playing the piano in the town square to give everyone some music because they couldn't go to the beach. Everything was going very smoothly until a little kid ran up to me and asked if she could play. I told her that she couldn't play and asked her politely to stay 2 meters away because she didn't have gloves or a mask. She then ran away. 5 minutes later, I noticed a Karen walking straight at me with her kid with a smirk on her face next to her. She didn't have gloves or a mask. The conversation went as follows. Karen. Hi. Me. Hi, could you please keep at least 2 meters away? Why? Because of the sickness? But that doesn't exist. It's just a lie to keep us all inside. Me. It does, miss. Now keep your distance. How dare you speak to me like that? You must let my daughter play your piano. Me. What grade is she? And where are her gloves, or yours for that matter? She doesn't need gloves to play the town piano, and you aren't wearing any either. Now get off so my angel can play, or I will get the cops from down there to arrest you. Me. Firstly, this is my piano. You can see the trolley I used to bring it down here tied over to that tree. Also, gloves make it harder to play, and no one else is going to be playing this piano. So go away. The Karen starts letting her daughter up onto the seats and starts trying to push me off. Me. Let's make a deal. I will tell you how to get to the beach for £5, but your daughter doesn't get to play. Karen, suddenly very excited. Okay, dear. You won't get to play the piano today, but you get a day at the beach, okay? Me. Pass the money. Karen passes the money. I then started to give her directions to the next village across. Karen. Thank you. The Karen then walked away clearly smug and probably thinking of the great day she would have at the beach. I started to wheel away my piano, knowing full well that there was no other way to get to the beach and that I had made money easy. Thanks for sticking around and reading. Have a great day. Speaking of the beach, are any of you planning on going to the beach soon? Or do you try to stay away from the beach? Please let us know. I love going to the beach and stealing things from people. Fine, let her blow up the microwave. I was just thinking about this the other day. Backstory. My first 2 years of high school, I took family and consumer sciences and was a member of FHA, which she was the sponsor of. The teacher straight up hated me. My first day in her class, she informed me that there were too many people in school with my last name. There were 4 of us, one of whom had never taken a class with her, and that she wasn't going to bother learning my first name. Apart from the time I won the FHA Outstanding Freshman Award, much to her chagrin, I never once heard her use my first name. This is just to let you know how she treated me. Everything was always my fault, regardless of who was at fault. On to the story. This was the incident that led me to quit FHA and decide not to take any more FACS classes. It was my sophomore year. We were doing a cooking lab. I don't remember what we were cooking, but we had to put melted butter in the bottom of the baking dish. My lab partner decided to cut out some steps by just going ahead and melting the butter in the baking dish in the microwave. The problem was, the baking dish we were using was metal. So there I was arguing with my partner about this for a good period of time. Me, you can't put a metal pan in the microwave. Partner, we do it all the time at my house. It was basically variations of that over and over. Suddenly, the teacher came up to us. Teacher, last name, stop arguing with your partner. You're supposed to be a team. Me, but Mrs. Jerk, she... Enough! I don't want to hear you arguing with her anymore. Do you understand? Me, yes, ma'am. So I complied. I stopped arguing with my partner. I also left the cooking lab and walked clear across the classroom, which was basically the size of 2 rooms. Teacher, last name, what are you doing? Me, you told me to stop arguing with her, so I'm not arguing with her. I just don't want to be on that side of the room when she blows up the microwave. That's when the teacher finally noticed what my partner was attempting to do. She got a good lecture on never putting metal into the microwave. And then, last name, why didn't you stop her? I should give you an F just for that. Me, are you kidding me? And I got up and walked out of the room. Edit. Family and Consumer Sciences, FACS, is the more PC name for home economics and has been for about 25 years. FHA was Future Homemakers of America. It changed its name after I was out of the organization, but while I was still in high school, to FCCLA, which is Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America. I didn't tell the principal because he already knew she was a bully, but she was tenured, so there really wasn't anything he could do. And let's just say the superintendent and I weren't on great terms. Have any of you guys ever had a teacher who was a real jerk? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know. You students need to stop complaining about your teachers. They only want what's best for you. Go ahead and do a chargeback, but you won't be getting a refund. Okay, I will. A couple of years ago, I ordered an express parcel delivery from the UK to the USA via one of those third-party parcel shipping companies. For those who are unfamiliar, they are a middleman, and they hold huge accounts with UPS, DHL, FedEx, etc. They then offer cheaper parcel rates and pass some of this discount on to the customer. So I ordered an express 48-hour delivery with one of these delivery companies for my 2 parcels to the USA. This cost me around £100 for the first 2 boxes, and from experience using this delivery company in the past, they have a delivery guarantee, which offers me a full refund of all carriage charges if any part of the shipment is not delivered within 48 hours. A few days later, I was told by my customer that the boxes had arrived 2 days late. Not a problem. I checked the tracking number and it had been held up at the UK-based air freight terminal, which entitled me to a full refund of the carriage charges. I then contacted the delivery company, but I was told that although I was fully entitled to a full refund, I'd have to speak to the third-party shipping company. I contacted them by phone and I was told that they don't issue refunds for delayed parcels. I explained that this was a guaranteed service and the delivery company said that I was entitled to a refund. At this point, I was passed on to a manager by the call center operative without even asking. The manager was very obnoxious and wasn't bothered that my parcel had been delayed. In his opinion, I shouldn't expect it to get there on time when I had paid such a low price. So you want a full refund just because your parcel is delayed? Yes, I do, because that is what was in the terms and conditions. But you didn't buy the extra insurance. No, I didn't, because the delivery already included £1,000 of insurance anyway. Well, we don't do refunds for delayed parcels, and especially if you haven't paid for the insurance. At this point, I was getting pretty annoyed because he was making up this idea of buying insurance to cover for delays. The insurance only covered total loss and damage anyway. So I explained that if I didn't receive a refund, I would simply initiate a chargeback on my credit card for the payment. At this point, he raised his voice and told me, "Fine, try to do a chargeback then. We will fight it and you won't get a refund. Yeah, your parcel was late, but that doesn't mean you get a free delivery." I ended the call and got straight on the phone to my credit card company. They went through a rigorous process with me and asked for a copy of the original invoice, the terms and conditions, etc. Within 24 hours, they had refunded the full amount back to my card and sent me a letter giving me the reasons they found the chargeback in my favor. It also explained that the merchant, the shipping company, had 30 days to contest the chargeback. However, 30 days came and went and the money was still showing as refunded. 6 weeks later, I receive an email from their customer service team telling me that they were willing to give me a partial refund of 10% to compensate me for the delay. Obviously, somebody hadn't realized that I had initiated a chargeback and now it was too late. So I replied and politely explained that I was told by the manager, stating his name, to initiate a chargeback because their company doesn't issue refunds even when their terms and conditions say they do. Therefore, as far as I was concerned, the matter was now closed as my credit card company had given them 30 days to reply to the chargeback and they had not replied. Therefore, the chargeback was granted. Not only did I never hear anything back from them, but I haven't used this company since. Entitled teacher tries to give me detention at a school I don't go to. Let's start with background info. So this happened 2 years ago when I was in my junior year of high school. I was involved in a group at our high school that pretty much was in charge of going to middle schools and telling them about high school and how to get involved, all that boring stuff. We went to one middle school that is notoriously known for having really entitled teachers. Another important detail to mention is that I'm a relatively short dude, so people sometimes mistake me for looking a lot younger than I am despite being nearly an adult. Now on to the story. I'll include dialogue, but everything is more paraphrased considering this happened almost 2 years ago, and I of course can't remember exactly everything everyone said. Cast. We've got me. We've got friend 1, part of the high school group. Friend 2, also part of the high school group. We've got entitled teacher. So this whole thing starts when we enter the school. The teacher from our high school who drove us to the school left to go to the office to sign us in and told us to head to the library. We do as we're told and start walking to the library. As we are, we come across a wall showing past graduates. The 2 girls I was with both went to this school, so we stopped so they could look at the photos. I pull out my phone to just check my texts while I wait for them. In comes entitled teacher. Entitled teacher in a very entitled tone. You know the one. What are you 3 doing here? Friend 1. Oh, we're just looking at the old photos. She assumed the teacher would have known we were here for the high school presentation. That was a mistake. Entitled teacher. Get back to class, now. She then looks at me, who was looking up at her from my phone. Give me your phone. Me, confused. No thanks. I really did not know how to respond. The girls made fun of me for saying this after this all happened. It was a joke for a while. Entitled teacher holding out her hand. Give me your phone. No phones during school hours. At this point, we all realized she was unaware of the high school presentation. Friend 2. Oh, we don't go to this school. We're here for the presentation and just wanted to look at the... I don't want to hear your excuses. You've all been terribly rude to me. Go down to the office now, and I will call your parents. I was shocked at this, considering my middle school was never like this. When I talked to the girls after, they said this sort of behavior was normal from teachers at this school, but they assumed this teacher was new, considering they had never seen her before. Me. Sorry, but we really don't go to this school. We're just going to head to the library now. No, you are not. Give me your phone, and I'm calling your parents. She then tries to reach for my phone, so I back up and put my phone in my pocket. Me. Don't touch my property. Entitled teacher, looking absolutely offended that I disobeyed her. This behavior will not be tolerated. Tell me your teacher's name, and I will make sure your phone is locked up for the rest of the day while you are in detention. This is just a summary of what she said. She rambled on a bit about respect. At this point, we are saved by our actual teacher coming down the hall from the office. She stops and asks what the problem is, and we explain. Entitled teacher looked horrified and instantly apologized, acting all nice. We were mad, but quickly moved on from the incident and went to do our presentation. That's pretty much it. Not as exciting as some others, but hope you enjoyed nonetheless. Have any of you ever had entitled teachers? I know I've had a few. Oh, whatever. You're all just a bunch of little troublemakers. Rudest customer I've ever had. My restaurant opened up about a week ago, and it's been pretty slow, especially in the mornings. After having only one two-top at the bar an hour after opening, I was relieved when another lady finally walks up. We have signs that say table closed to prevent people from walking up to the bar. All guests are supposed to be seated by a host. This lady somehow bypassed the hosts, sees all the closed signs, and snaps at me. Where do I sit? I was caught off guard for a second because of her attitude, because I haven't had anyone bypass the hosts to come to the bar yet. Usually, nobody can get in without speaking to a host first. However, we were so slow, and I didn't care. I just told her she could just sit at the open spot and moved the closed sign for her. I ask her how she's doing, and she just sighs and looks at me, not replying for a couple seconds until she finally says flatly, "Good, how are you?" She asks for an iced tea to drink, and I bring it to her. Now, the restaurant I work at has taken away all of the salt, pepper, and sugar caddies off of the tables in the bar. We have salt, pepper, and sweetener packets that we have, by request only, that we're supposed to give out. Normally what happens is I drop off a tea, they say, "Can I get some sweetener?" and I get it for them, no problem. This lady, however, without saying a word, gets up and walks away. I assume she's going to the bathroom. She comes back, glaring at me, and literally slams down a bag of sweetener on the table that she must have got from her car. I tell her, "I had sweetener back here for you." She snaps, "Oh, did you?" Very sarcastic and rudely. I was literally 6 feet away from her the entire time. All she had to do was ask me. She squeezed her lemon in the tea and literally throws it on the bar top. She orders her food with me, which default comes with a certain type beans. We have other types of beans, and I usually ask if the default beans is what they want, but she seemed so irritated at it and was being so rude and short, I decided not to ask her. If she wanted a different bean, it would take me 30 seconds to change it out. My manager was walking by and heard the way she was talking to me and asks her if everything is okay. She is visibly upset, yet keeps telling him she's fine. The other bartender asks what he can do for her to make her experience better. She literally ignores him. My manager brings out her food and she goes, "Should I have been asked what type of bean I wanted?" He says, "Did you want a different bean? I can get that for you." "That's not what I asked. Should she have asked me what kind of bean I wanted?" "Those are the default beans, but yes, I suppose she should have asked. I can get you other beans if that's what you want. It will take less than a minute." "That's not what I want. I just wanted options." Her tone is very belligerent and hostile throughout the whole exchange. Since there's nothing he can do for her, he walks away. She snaps at me to bring salt, so I do. Then she snaps at me to bring pepper, so I do. Then my general manager walks by and asks her what's wrong. That's how visibly angry this woman is. At first, she snaps, "Nothing's wrong," but then proceeds to tell him just how awful I am, how I'm the worst server ever. She asks him if I have ever gone through training because I clearly have no idea what I'm doing. Then she turns to me and in the most condescending tone, like it was the most obvious thing in the world, says, "Can I get the bill and a to-go box?" She had just barely got her food, so excuse me for not reading your mind knowing you were done. I leave to get the to-go box, and my general manager asked me what was going on. I take maybe 2 minutes to brief him on the situation, and apparently the whole time I was gone, she was saying, "Why is she taking so long? Where is she?" I bring her the box, and she's boxing up her food, literally slamming her plates and stuff all over. This lady is crazy, so I didn't want to bring the bus tab over to her and start taking plates away, because she was still boxing her food, and I didn't want her to get mad at me for taking something too early. My plan was to wait until she was done to take her plates away. However, she looks at me and snaps, "Are you gonna come take some of these plates away?" The entire time I'm taking her plates away, she's berating me. "Is this your first day? Do you even know what you're doing? I used to be a server, and I would make $100 a shift because I knew what I was doing. I asked people what kind of beans they wanted with their meal." I just kept going, "Yeah, good for you. That's great that you're so good at serving." She hasn't put the card in the check presenter, but I see my other guest has. I'm literally in the middle of paying out my other guest when she goes, "Hello?" Like I'm supposed to stop helping the other guest and help her instead. I just ignore her, thank my other guest, and then pay her out. I tell her it was a pleasure serving her, my voice dripping with sarcasm, and she leaves, leaving me with a big fat 0 on her tab. What a horrible customer. If you saw a Karen treating a server like this, would you do something about it? Please let us know. "She did nothing wrong. That's what I call horrible customer service." The time Karen actually got to speak to the manager. This happened a couple of years ago, but I was reading an Ask Reddit thread that jogged this memory to come up. Anyway, I think it was like 2016-ish, and I was working as a receptionist in an office. My boss/owner of the business was actually a very good friend of mine that I had known for a really long time. Anyway, she would occasionally give her employees gift cards to different places to buy some more work attire, as the dress code kept changing as the business did. I took mine and set out to Target. I was in the fitting room trying on some stuff when I hear what sounded like a stern, angry jerk talking. When I come out, it is in fact a stern, angry jerk talking. She's standing with, who I assume is her daughter, in front of a mirror that was in the hall of the dressing room areas, but not in the room itself. She's basically telling her poor daughter, who can't be more than 13 or 14, about how if she lost weight, clothes might actually look good on her. This lady was actually pretty big herself. Not that that is a bad thing, but hypocrisy and mental abuse is. The poor girl looked defeated, and I kinda watched them as I handed my items I didn't want back to the girl working and said something along the lines of, "Man, some people suck," in a voice I thought was pretty low. I guess it wasn't. The jerk thought the girl working the counter said it at first and started to go after her. I told her I said it because that girl didn't know me and didn't need to lose her job over me. I mean, I'm sure you can guess what happens next. She wants to speak to the manager. I try the whole "I don't work here" thing, but her rebuttal is that I obviously do. I'm obviously here on my day off and should still be reprimanded for being rude about a customer to my little friend. Not that I wouldn't be friends with the girl working there, she seemed lovely, but we had never met before, to my knowledge anyway. I'm about to tell her that when a new idea dawns on me. "Yeah, you can talk to my manager," I tell her, getting my phone out. "I just have to call her because she isn't here today." Entirely true. My manager was at home that day getting ready for a party I was later attending at her house. I call her, she answers. I say, "Hey, I have someone here at Target demanding to speak to you." There is some quite obvious confusion on her end. All I hear is, "Okay," before putting her on speakerphone. I'm not going to let a stranger press my phone against their face. "Okay, you're on speaker." Immediately, Jerk starts telling her how awful I am and what I did, and is also adding spice that it's awful that no manager is on the floor to deal with this situation today. My boss started laughing hysterically, which made Jerk even more angry. Well, if you ask for a random person's manager, don't be surprised that they don't work at Target, you idiot. I lost it at this point too. I apologized to the nice young lady working the rooms, put my phone to my ear so I could laugh it off with my friend/manager and start to walk away. Of course, Jerk is still yelling at me because I'm awful, and I see what I assume is an actual manager coming over to the rooms. So I tell my manager I'll call her back and head back to see what lies she tries to spin, and also to try to make sure she doesn't accuse fitting room girl of anything. Lo and behold, she was trying to blame that girl and started yelling about that jerk, me this time, coming back, and I should be punished too. Luckily, the manager saw me and immediately says, "I've never seen her before in my life. She doesn't work here." Angry lady says she can't deal with her lies anymore, grabs her poor, embarrassed, beyond all reason daughter, and is walking away. The manager apologized to me and the employee, but it's not like I ever blamed him. He was super kind. Once I got to my car, I felt bad that I didn't give the daughter the rest of my Target gift card, but I knew there was no way I could have. So I called my manager back and just about died laughing at the situation. Speaking of Target, where do you shop? Target or Walmart? Or somewhere else? Please let us know. To be honest, I love terrorizing people in both of them. Entitled kid broke his phone to take mine. Last year, I bought my newest phone, a Samsung Galaxy A70 that I still use to this day. About a month after buying it, one day I took my husky on a walk in the park. Usually I just sit on the bench and let her run freely through the park. She's very friendly and strangers would often play with her and pet her. While she was running through the park, I decided to pull out my phone and browse social media. That's when a kid that was probably around 6 or 7 approaches me. He just stands still and looks at my phone for a while. Entitled kid, "Your phone is so big." Me, smiling, "Yeah, it sure is." He pulls out his own phone from his pocket. I didn't take a good look at it, but I saw it was a white Samsung. Its screen was full of scratches, but not broken. Anyway, it's safe to say that his phone has seen better days. He puts his phone next to mine, comparing their sizes. The A70 is quite a large phone, and he was apparently impressed by this. It's bigger than mine. Me. Yes, it's a big phone. Do you have games on it? Me. No, I don't play games. At that point, I just wanted to get rid of him, so I was getting ready to leave. I was about to call my husky by her name when the kid asked me if I wanted to swap phones with him. Entitled Kid. Do you want to swap phones with me? Me. No, I don't. Sorry. Entitled Kid in a sad tone. But why? My phone is good too. It has games on it. Yours doesn't have games. I called my husky and put her back in her leash, preparing to leave. Shortly after, I start walking toward the park's gate. The kid intentionally bumps into me and lets go of his phone. I think let go is not the right term. He literally threw his phone on the ground. He picks up his phone almost as soon as he drops it. The screen is shattered. Entitled Kid. You broke my phone. Me. No, I didn't. You dropped it. Yes, you did. And now you have to give me your phone. His mother hears him yelling, and she comes to see what was going on. What happened here? He broke my phone. The kid then shows his broken phone to his mother. Tell him to give me his phone. Did you break my son's phone? Me. No, I didn't. He just ran into me and dropped it. So you had something to do with this? Me. No, I was just leaving. He's the one who bumped into me, which was intentional, by the way. Entitled Mom turns towards her son. Is this true? No, he broke my phone. Now I want his phone. Me. He's lying. Don't call my son a liar. He said you broke his phone. Give him your phone right now, or I will call the police. The police? Are you joking? What for? I didn't do anything. I just turned around and kept walking. Entitled Mom starts yelling and asking me about my address so she could call the police on me. I told her that it was none of her business where I lived and just went home. I know kids can do crazy stuff, but after seeing a little jerk intentionally break his phone to take a stranger's, I think I've seen it all. Speaking of phones, what model phone do you have? Let's see if we have more Apple users or Android users. Please let us know. I've got a big box of both. I just love taking them from people. Whistling at me is not the way to go. This just happened 1 hour ago. I'm wearing a white hoodie, black pants, and Nike trainers, as well as clearly visible headphones and a snapback hat. In no way do I look like I work, well, anywhere really. So I'm essentially having one of those days. I hate everyone and everything and just want to be left alone. However, I had to do a little bit of shopping, so I went down to my local supermarket to pick up a few items. Bit of food, drinks, etc. Walking around with my cart, headphones on, listening to old rock songs like Linkin Park, 3 Days Grace, that kind of thing. Just going about my day. When my phone rings, which cuts my music off, so I answer the phone and take out my headphones, just so I don't end up shouting inside of a busy supermarket like a crazy person when a soft, "Excuse me," gets said. So I push the cart and myself a few steps forward, still talking on the phone. Excuse me? A little louder this time. I quickly glance back and move to the opposite side of the aisle, completely out of the way. I said excuse me. Now answer me and help me. This woman bellowed. I looked at the lady and showed her my phone and said, I don't work here. Go bother someone else. She just stands there, tapping her foot, looking at her watch. I look at her, shaking my head, clearly getting annoyed with her constantly tapping her foot, sighing, mumbling under her breath. I lower my phone and ask her, Can you leave me alone? I just said I don't work here. She just shakes her head, looks back at her watch, then whistles at me like a dog, holding her arms out to her side. Are you done yet? I need you to help me. I just ignore her, then she whistles again, so I lashed out. Listen here, love. I'm not a dog, so don't whistle at me like one. She looks at me in shock and horror, then slaps my phone out of my hand and walks off. I shake my head as she goes away, picking up my phone, and then yell at her, Excuse me, and whistle at her as she turns the corner. I had a good laugh with my friend on the other end of the phone after that. It cheered me up and has currently got me through the last hour of my day so far and will keep me going. Also, upon remembering my last two stories, I realized my phone seems to attract crazy people and tends to get hit out of my hand. Want to take away our job perks? Good luck with that. The company I was working for had a fair number of people that traveled almost exclusively. So while it was a fairly small company at maybe 100 people on staff, across everyone, I'd guess we would have about 12 to 15K nights in a hotel and over 1 million flight miles per year. That worked out quite well for everyone because they racked up a lot of rewards with hotels and airlines, so their vacations ended up costing them basically nothing. In addition to that, the company's policy was that you booked and paid for all of your travel and then submitted a request to get reimbursed. So quite a lot of people were also getting insane rewards from their credit card companies as well. It was considered a perk of the job, even to the point that HR would mention it when recruiting people, and it helped people put up with some of the other BS policies they didn't like. Enter new controller. Let's call her Karen. Karen decides that the company is losing money and implements a new reimbursement system where everyone gets company cards that they use, so the company gets all of the credit card rewards. On top of this, they also partner with a travel agency that everyone has to use to book their flights, hotels, and rental cars. The idea is that since all the money/bookings are now in the company's name, the company gets to keep all the rewards. This is all great for the company, but it sucks for all the employees because this had formerly been one of the top perks. It's like each employee got a several $1,000 pay decrease. Cue malicious compliance. I expect our CEO was like a lot of CEOs in that he had an assistant that booked all of his travel and just sent him an itinerary so he knew what flight to get on, where to pick up his rental, and what hotel to check into. Similarly, when things didn't go his way, he's not one for wanting the details. He just wants it fixed ASAP. So the admin assistant started following the procedures to the letter. CEO ends up getting stuck with crappy cars, crappy hotel rooms, and stuck in coach class because the system either has limits on what choices can be made or wants to use reward points to book, and you can't use those types of rewards for the flights, hotels, etc. that he's used to. Additionally, when he had run into problems, he'd call his assistant and she'd tell him she would have to call the travel agent to see what's wrong, and this would invariably occur outside business hours, so it'd take a day to get an answer. If memory serves, the policy change lasted all of 30 days before the CEO walked into the controller's office, told her it was horrible, and directed that everything should be put back exactly the way that it was. After that, I know at least a handful of people that ended up taking the CEO's assistant out for dinner/drinks as a thank you for helping to get things back to normal. Speaking of hotels, what's your favorite hotel to stay at? Please let us know.
I only stay in the Hilton.
But you can stay in the Motel 6. I heard they leave the light on for you. Karen screams at my mute friend. We've got me. We've got Kay, my close friend. She's mute, yet sweet. She knows sign, but carries a notepad to write on in case someone doesn't know enough sign language. We've got the mom, the Karen of the story. Large, loud, and rude. We've got the son of Karen, a quiet little punk who I wanted to punt across the store. So, my friend graduated just a few weeks ago. I decided to celebrate her graduation by taking her to a GameStop to grab a game she liked. When we got there, it just so happened to be the last one on the shelf. There were more people there than I expected, so we had to weave around a bit to grab the game she wanted. She grabbed it and went for the counter, when suddenly, a Karen stepped out of nowhere and slammed into my friend, knocking her down. Karen, watch where you're going. I could have been hurt. Friend tries to sign some apology or something to her, but she starts yelling again. What are you doing? Aren't you going to say sorry? I almost knocked into my son. Me. Hey, take it easy. She's trying. She's mute. Mute? What do you mean, mute? Me. It means she can't talk. She knows sign language, but that's it. The Karen huffed, and her son snatched the game from where friend had dropped it when she fell over. Me. Hey, give that back, please. I'm getting it as a present for her. Well, you can just get another one. My son wants it, and he deserves it more than some little brain-damaged girl. Me. Brain damaged? What exactly do you mean? It's obvious there's something wrong with her brain if she's mute like that. With that, she waddled off to the storefront, the little punk in tow. I just took friend off to get ice cream to calm her down. Sometimes Karens will do crazy things to get the video games they want. Speaking of video games, what's your favorite video game of all time? Please let us know. Oh, my son just loves Fortnite, but I prefer CSGO. Neighbor calls the SPCA on us twice. My doggo is part bear dog, double coat. She is also really pretty. She has the long curly coat of a duck troller and the coloring and double coat of a bear dog. One day last summer, we let her out to do her business. We have a fully fenced yard, completely shaded with ancient trees, and she had a bowl of cool water. Honestly, she was having such a great time out there, we forgot to let her back in before we went to church. But my brother was home, so it was no big deal, right? Apparently not. Our dog is a rescue, and like most rescues, she has separation anxiety. So when she saw us pull out of the driveway, she started to cry. After about 20 minutes or so, my brother let her back in and all was fine. Nope, SPCA came knocking on our door. Two very nice officers who explained that a concerned neighbor called saying we left our doggo outside for hours on end in the heat. I explained that never ever happened due to her extreme separation anxiety. They had a look at her, saw a well-fed, well-groomed dog. Okay, a little too well-fed. Okay, fine, she's spoiled rotten and has the cookie belly to prove it. They had a look at her yard and said it was one of the nicest setups they saw in a long time. Our only fault was we were late in getting her registered with the city, which given she was only recently adopted, they forgave and reminded us to make sure we did it. Fast forward 5 months later. It's near Christmas. It's Canada. There's snow on the ground and our good doggo is loving it. She had a huge yard full of snow all to herself to run and dig and poop in. She was in heaven. Sadly, she still got scared if she couldn't see her people when she felt she needed to. So one day, after about 15 minutes of snow time, she came to the door off our deck to be let in. I was busy, so it took me about 5 minutes to let her in. 5 minutes. She's a bear dog. Yeah, it's Canada. Yeah, it's cold. She's a bear dog. They use them to pull sleds in Alaska. 2 days later, same SPCA officers came knocking at our door. Same neighbor complained. This time, we were leaving our dog out in the cold. She insisted that SPCA take our doggo away because we were being so mean to her. Once again, the officers checked the spoiled rotten pooch, noted her full bowels, rather furry, spot on the couch, toys on the floor, and her double coat for insulation from the cold and heat. Once again, they checked our yard, noted the happy, rompy tracks in the snow from a good dog having a blast playing. Now I have to say they were both really nice, but after this second unnecessary call to our house, I could tell they were upset. I said, "Look, I know you can't tell me which neighbor it was, and that's fine, but one call." Okay, fine, maybe they were honestly concerned. I appreciate that, but first they complain we are leaving her in the heat, now they complain we're leaving her in the cold. She's a bear dog. When the heck is she supposed to poop? They laughed and agreed and promised to speak to the neighbor and officially tell them to shut up, only more professionally. We never found out who it was that called, but honestly, I am of the mind that they were only hoping to get our girl taken away from us so that they could adopt her for themselves. She really is a beautiful doggo. Old lady on airplane refuses to take her feet off of me. Sorry if things are a little choppy. This happened when I was 11. I'm 17 now, and the only other person there was my mom. She filled me in on the parts I had forgotten. Characters. We've got me. We've got my mom. Not entitled. We've got nice flight attendant. We've got the nice son who is in his mid-30s. We've got the nice son's wife, also mid-30s, and entitled parent, late 60s, early 70s. So this all happened when I was coming back from Miami with my mom on an airplane. We were flying back to San Francisco after a wonderful vacation to Disney World. My mom had planned the trip a little late, so we were not sitting together on the flight, but she was across the aisle and 2 rows back from me so I could see her. Now, to set the scene, I was sitting in the aisle because I like to stretch my leg out every once in a while, and this old woman who looked as pale as a ghost, and she looked honestly like a female version of the Stacey Puff Marshmallow Man. She was sitting in the window seat, and her son and his wife were sitting in front of us. So anyone who has flown from Miami to San Francisco will know it's around 5 to 6 hours long. As soon as we take off, this woman takes off her shoes and puts her back to the wall and puts her legs on the middle seat. No one was there. Now this really disgusted me because her feet reeked, and to top it all off, she had put her feet against my leg. I was silently freaking out because being 11, I had absolutely zero idea what to do. I didn't want to ask her to move because I thought that would be rude. My mom always told me to be nice to people and not point out things that grossed me out. so internally I was screaming. About 20 minutes into the flight attendant started coming around asking what drinks people wanted and if they wanted one of those little portable TVs they have on planes. When she asks what drink I would like, I look at her and just pointed at the lady's feet. The following conversation ensues. Nice flight attendant. Ma'am, please put your feet down. Entitled parent. Oh, I'm sorry. I just need to keep them elevated until my Advil kicks in. You see, my back hurts sometimes when I fly, and I just need to stop the pain. Flight attendant. Ma'am, if this was going to be an issue, you should have taken them earlier or have gotten your own row. Now please take your feet off of him. I can't. The pain is unbearable. Mom, from the other row, stands up and walks over. What's the problem over here? She then noticed the lady's feet. Excuse me, please get your feet off of him. At this point, I just froze and didn't say anything because I don't like confrontation. Entitled parent. If he had a problem with it, then he should have said something. It's not my fault that I have so much back pain. Honestly, probably is her fault because she was super heavy. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Her son finally chimes in from in front of us because our conversation had woken him up. Nice son. Mom, just get your feet off of him. This is why we don't like flying with you. You always make a scene. Entitled parent. But my back hurts. Nice son. You took 4 Advils, and I know for a fact that your back doesn't hurt that badly. You did this on the flight here, and once you get on the plane, you magically have back pain. But... Mom, just stop. Nice son to me. Hey bud, do you want me to switch seats with you? I would be more than willing to give you my aisle seat. I said okay, and we traded seats. My mom thanked the nice son, and that was the end of it. The flight attendant gave me an extra stroopwafel because I went through that. I thanked her for that, because now I love stroopwafels. Once we get off of the plane and we went to get our luggage from the carousel, my mom and I saw entitled parent, nice son, and nice son's wife arguing about something, and I swear I heard nice son say something about how this was the last trip they were taking with entitled parent. I do feel bad if she was truly in pain, but if she knew it was going to happen, then she should have done something beforehand. So Karen, what did you think of today's stories? They were horrible. Horrible? How dare you? These were some of the best we've ever read. Oh, shut up, Mr. Reddit. It's ridiculous what people like myself have to go through. Dealing with stupid people like yourself and your subscribers. Look, Karen, you can say whatever you want about me, but don't you talk about my re-army. Re-army. Most of your viewers aren't even subscribed to your channel. 70% if I'm correct. Well, I can't argue with that. That's true. Most of my viewers don't actually subscribe for some reason. It's because you're stupid, Mr. Reddit. No, I'm not. Alright guys, let's prove Karen wrong by making sure you're subscribed to the channel and turn on notifications. They're not going to listen to you. And if you'd like me, or Karen, to record a special message for you, come visit me on Fiverr, link pinned in the comments below. Never! And join as a channel member today, and Karen will give you a special shout out in the next video. Like heck I will!